Welcome all. We're going to bring the meeting back to regular order. Would the attorney give us an announcement from closed session?
Yes, thank you, Mr. Mayor. From closed session, there's no reportable action. Direction given to staff.
Thank you. We have the Pledge of Allegiance. Do we have some visitors? We do. Excellent.
Good afternoon. Come on up, girls.
Thank you for inviting us to lead your meeting with the Pledge of Allegiance. We are students from Ophir School. My name is Stella. Saying the Pledge of Allegiance helps form a connection to our country, the United States of America. We are a country with a diverse population. Saying the Pledge of Allegiance and instills a sense of patriotism for all people. My name is Elena. We are here to say the Pledge of Allegiance, honor the flag, and everything it represents. We say the Pledge of Allegiance to start our day at school, to begin official meetings or ceremonies, honor the flag at special events like ball games. We would like to lead you in the Pledge of Allegiance. Salute, pledge. Pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Good job. Thank you. Ladies, would you come up here, please? Thank you for doing so. And
good job.
This is Stella. Thank you. Future councilman, I hope. All right. We'll have an adoption of the agenda. One item I'll make a mention that the public hearing that was arranged for tonight has been canceled by the applicant, so we won't have the public hearing at 5:15. Adoption of agenda, council.
So moved with that one exclusion.
Second.
Call the roll.
Motion passes with 6 yeses and 1 absent.
And for the rest of you in the room, Councilman Goodson is not here tonight. She has a medical issue. Presentations and proclamations, seeing none. Public communication, hearing of non-agenda items. Do we have some non-agenda items?
Yes, we do, sir. I will begin with the cameraman and follow that with TJ Jensen.
Good evening, Oroville City Council. First off, hope everybody has a happy Thanksgiving. It's the last council meeting for the start of the holidays at the end of the upcoming this month in December. I just wanted to touch on as the Veterans Day Parade. I don't know if that happened. I was thinking about going, but poured down rain. So hopefully next year it doesn't rain. But that's life for you. You can't control the weather, but maybe if you're in Dubai, you can. I hear they got cloud seeding now. But anyways, just want to touch on public records requests, how that's going. Made some requests for some more recent stuff that's happened. City needs about 30 more days approximately to do some research, go over legalities. Hey, that's great. But I did get responded back to on a couple. Well, first off, my one regarding Mr. William Beaver from 2021, the basis for that denial is that it's still part of an investigation. But from my understanding, he was sentenced on that alleged allegations that this request is pertaining to, and has since committed many more crimes since then that he's been sentenced on. So I just want some more clarification. I can understand if you're not going to release it, but I mean, what do you mean by investigation? Please don't tell me it's the sheriff's department excuse where they've told me straight up that they're not going to release body cam footage because, in their words, an investigation never ends. My second request relates to an officer that was accused of doing a DUI at the Union, just down the street here from City Hall. The basis for denial is part of the internal affairs. Okay, I can understand that, but we can't even release the CAD log. From my understanding, when you call the police department, a call is generated, an incident number is created. I mean, to at least narrow down the date of when this alleged incident happened, for the record. I mean, they could make a simple redaction if need be, if there's a name or something in there I'm not supposed to have. It's, real simple. And then finally, the request pertaining to myself, where I had a juvenile brandish a knife on me on the way to a city council meeting a few months back. Of course, denied because, juvenile. I can understand the name, but why can't we at least release the body cam footage of me being interviewed right outside the doors here by the officer, taking my statement, or the ride with Officer Cizik to do the, the lineup and ID. I mean, I want to show the police department the good side here other than just the bad, but it's difficult when, the public records are law and there's, sort of vague denials as to why I can't do that. I want to be transparent, but it's almost like the law is making it so I can't be.
Thank you, sir. Next one is, what would you say, TJ?
Yes, sir. Up next, we have TJ Jensen, followed by Bill Spear.
Hey guys, TJ Jensen,
Welcome.
195 Valley View Drive. Thank you. First, I want to say thank you to Fred Mayo and his staff for the amazing road work downtown. It looks amazing. And that's on behalf of the DBA. I know we're a little bit of a pain in everybody's side. Most of the time we're opinionated. So we just really want to say thank you for all the hard work that your staff did, making the streets funnel down. And I personally see traffic slowing down. So it's really, really awesome.
That's good.
You guys, I know we were a pain during that. So you guys need to be congratulated. Good job. It looks great. Another thing I wanted to really say thank you about was staff's attention to getting the Christmas lights up last night and tonight prior to the big rainstorm coming. That was a huge thing for downtown because our Christmas previews this weekend. So we really appreciate it. My next item is to draw your attention and awareness in how we all share in a professional conduct code. I, as a real estate broker and real estate agent, and you guys too as professionals and elected officials, all share in that same professional conduct code, and we take oaths. When it comes to high standards, this current council has set the highest bar for courtesy and transparency. It shines in the staffing with pride, and we all feel good to be a part of the city of Orrville with your guys' leadership. I'm here to bring attention to my concerns with the recent filing litigation with SCORE in regards to our previous mayor, Chuck Reynolds, and his understanding of professional code of conduct. I've read the entire lawsuit filing in detail, and I've read SCORE's defense and amended defense. Understanding tomorrow the courts will be hearing SCORE's request for all of Mr. Reynolds' email and correspondence as it relates to the lawsuit. I'm putting on notice to this body that we as a business community are with you. We're with you and appreciate your transparency as this body and hold each of us, as you hold us accountable, we hold you accountable, and we appreciate that. This council has been by far the most transparent I've seen in years. The staffing is amazing. So as we go through this process of public becoming aware of that litigation, be aware of how we each conduct our own personal conduct or professional codes of conduct. I see how you guys have provided that to us, and I witnessed 4 years under Mr. Reynolds. We will not tolerate that as a business community ever again. As a business community, it will never happen in our town again, and we appreciate you guys for all that you do. Thank you.
Thank you, sir.
Thank you. Up next, we have Bill Spear, followed by Brent Moore.
Mr. Mayor,
Welcome.
Vice Mayor, City Council. Thank God we're past all the election stuff, and if you have a red hat or a blue hat, whichever it is, we're still one city, and as we move forward, I would like to share the verse of the day, which is, "My commandment is this, love each other as I have loved you. That's scriptures talks about a higher level than in the Old Testament. It said, love your neighbor as yourself. But Jesus is saying we need to love each other as he loves us. And so I am thankful that we're past all the election stuff, and it didn't turn out as some of us would want in the state and in the federal as some would want. But as we go forward, if we just love each other, it'll get us all through it as a community. And 1 Corinthians 13 says, love never fails. I really love that. It's 3 verses, love never fails. And so I want to pray for, it's the verse of the day. It seems like every city council meeting, there's a really good verse of the day, right on time, a word in season. So Father God, we thank you for your love. And we pray that you would help us to love each other no matter what color hat that they wear, that there's a place and a purpose for all of us. And for our nation, we pray healing for our nation, for our state, for our county, and for our city. We pray for our city that you would make our city a city on a hill, a light on a shelf, that you would bless our city with provision, that you would bless our city with healing, with wisdom as we are enacting in the wisdom that you've given us. We thank you for what you've done, the roads and the improvements and the things that are going forth. And that is our prayer, that other cities would see what's going on in Orrville, and come and see that you are moving here, that you are working, that we would have the wisdom to deal with the homeless crises, and it is a crisis, that you would use us to model a system that lifts them up and empowers them and strengthens them and heals them. And for the criminal justice system, we thank you for the new laws that passed. And Lord, we do need that wisdom to enact it and to help people get recovery and out of those the bondages and back into society. Help productive member of society. In Jesus' name, amen.
Thanks, sir.
Thank you. Up next, we have Brent Moore.
Welcome, Mr. Moore.
Good evening. I just wanted to get a clarification from the council concerning the cancellation of the public hearing that was scheduled for tonight to hear the appeal of the Planning Commission's approval of the Gold Creek Commons project here in Orrville. And it's my understanding that the appellant, which was Pacific Coast Producers, has withdrawn that appeal. Is that correct?
Let the attorney.
I can speak to that, yes. Yes, the appellant, PCP, Pacific Coast Producers, they withdrew their appeal, leaving the Planning Commission's decision with the 12 conditions intact.
And let me clarify, too, that the Planning Commission adopted a resolution of approval. Is that what grants the approval of the project, the resolution of the Planning Commission?
The resolution does not grant the approval. The resolution documents what the direction of the Planning Commission gave.
Memorializes
so
it?
It memorializes it.
Okay.
And in order to be certain that it's accurate, I've reviewed what they said in the Planning Commission meeting. And so there may be a clarification, I think, that the city is going to issue on that, because my understanding is that the written documentation of that was slightly inaccurate, but that'll be circulated.
Okay. So just so we're clear, there is no appeal any longer. It's been withdrawn, and we all have unanimous understanding that there is no longer an appeal of the approval of the Orrville Planning Commission of Gold Creek Commons mixed-use project. Correct?
There is no appeal scheduled for today.
Excuse me. That's what we're trying to get at, is that you didn't just simply say, hey, we canceled the meeting, we're going to open it another day. Because that
Sir,
would
the
be
appeal is
violating our due
withdrawn.
process.
I don't have any other comments. The
So
appeal is
we want to
withdrawn.
know that they
Mr. Moore.
withdrew the appeal.
Mr. Moore, we're not going to engage in an extensive back and forth. If you want to take this up with me offline after the meeting, I will do so.
Okay, well, we're going to hope that we memorialize that that appeal was withdrawn and that our due process to a hearing has not been violated. Thank you.
Jimmy, sir, a correction for you.
He has a clarification. Councilman Thompson.
Yeah.
First of all, thank you for coming to town. And just a point of curiosity, on the plans, I saw somewhere where there's going to be like elevators is that a real thing or? I mean, but it's something that's really in the plans to happen where the people will park their cars and an elevator will take it down and whatnot? Will you turn his mic on, please?
Yes.
We're driving in an underground, cavern where you pick out a spot. What happens is you'll pull into a small, area where a car would park, and you're going to be driving onto a tray. And then what'll happen is you'll key in like your credit card. And if you live in those apartments, you would then just go to the elevator and go up to your apartment. And your car will be dragged, you might say, moved on that tray to a given slot, and then it picks it up and puts it in that slot. Then when you come back, you swipe your card, and that car is picked up out of that slot mechanically and brought out to the little driveway where you meet it at, and then you drive away.
Wow.
So we get more efficiency as far as putting in more cars in a smaller space. And then the cost to garage a car averages about $12,000 a garage if you were like in a single family home. But when you garage a car in this mechanical way, you can reduce those costs down to about $8,000 a unit.
Gotcha.
So it's a way of helping to make storage for vehicles and more affordable housing.
Gotcha.
By using that technology.
Right. Well, thank you for coming to town.
Yeah, you're
Thank you,
welcome.
sir. Do we have any more public comments?
I do not have any, sir.
Okay. Well, with that, we'll move forward to reports and discussions, council announcements and reports. Council, any announcements looking at the body here? Yes. Yeah, Councilman Weber, please.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I have in my hand here a flyer, and this is for the Orville Resource Center and Open Door Church Community Thanksgiving Dinner, which will be next Wednesday, the 27th, from 11 a.m. to 3 p.m. Everyone is welcome. Pastor Alan Dykes from the Rescue Mission asked me to make this announcement. I'm happy to do so. This is a great opportunity if you want to come to serve or to be fed. So there's some flyers right over there next to Chief Tens if you're interested. And also, Pastor Alan Dykes asked me to ask the council if there would be an appetite for us to come, if any of us wanted to come and serve for an hour. I know I'm going to be there no matter what because I don't have a choice because my bride's going to make me go do it, and I don't want the choice anyway. But if any of you guys would like to come and pencil out some time, we could all go and serve together. So
thank you.
Thank you.
Councilman Johnstone's next.
Thank you. I just recently went to the COC meeting, and there is a free presentation just for any tenants that are currently renting. There's a fair housing and tenants' right presentation that will be happening Thursday, December 5th from 2 to 3:30 p.m. at the Butte County Department of Employment and Social Services in Chico on East Avenue, Suite 200. It is basically a workshop for tenants that will include information on fair housing laws and the reasonable accommodation and reasonable modification process for tenants with disabilities. So they just ask that I put the word out there to anybody that has any questions regarding fair housing and tenants' rights. Thank you.
Vice Mayor Smith is next in the queue.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Out on Highway 99, we have 4 new beautiful billboards talking about all the wonderful things to do in Orville. So just mention that. One says grab a paddle, talking about our waterways, and get in gear with our, of course, beautiful biking trails. Find your stride, which just, of course, encourages people to get out and walk, which is, I think, important. And then the other is Make a Splash, with just people having a good time enjoying our waterways. I also want to mention the fact that we're coming up on, of all things, the Christmas Light Parade. Very excited about that this year. And our theme is retro theme, kind of blast to the past, which is really cool. And I just want to say that we're almost full. So if you have any illusions of participating in this year's Light Parade, you need to get on board and get an application in. Thank you.
Councilman Weber, you back to the queue?
Yeah, wait, real quick, Mr. Cameraman, there was a parade, and it wasn't the most well-attended parade, but it was still attended, and there was, I don't know, how many floats, Mr. Mayor, do you think?
There was quite a few.
Yeah, there was.
I didn't get to see the end of it. We just saw the beginning of it, but people, rain or shine, they were there.
Yeah, they were there.
Thank
Yeah.
you. I tried to find any information on a cancellation, but I couldn't find it.
No.
No problem. Yeah.
But just there were lots of extra smiles with the kids because we had lots of candy. Yeah, they were.
Yeah. I'll have a quick announcement. Dean Gurr from the Rotary Club couldn't make it tonight. He has a corresponding event at the Lodge tonight. But December 9th, up at the bridge, the ribbon cutting for the Orville Lights project will begin at 1 p.m. So the contractor's been hired, the project will start, and the lights will start the installation process. So kudos to him, huh?
Groundbreaking.
The ribbon cutting, groundbreaking, whatever you want to call it. It's, yeah.
To me, ribbon cutting means we're done. We're turning the lights on.
Well,
We're not breaking ground, is it?
No, the bridge is there, so we don't have to do anything with the bridge, so it's already there. But
Sorry.
he was going to come to, I said I'd mention it tonight. Just put it on your calendar, December 9th. It's going to be a nice event to start the project. And like I said, it's been a lot of work, and I got to give him credit for being the coordinator of that. It's a huge, monumental effort that's right now up to about $300,000 in terms of the project. So it's going to be a neat thing, and Orville Lights moving forward. Cool. Any other council members? Then I go look at administration reports. I know we have some pretty pictures here to look at.
Oh, my goodness.
Fred, I'll give you first up if you want.
Okay, I guess I'm straight out of the box. Okay, so I got a couple of things I'd like to go over real quick. We all know that there's a significant weather maker coming in. There's a prediction anywhere between 3 to 6 inches of rain starting early tomorrow morning, going through the balance of Friday. 3 to 6 inches of rain is quite a bit of water. We do have a sandbag station that's already been deployed out at Hewlett Park. Public Works has been out working on the culverts, getting as many leaves as we can off the gutters. When the rain and wind hits, we're probably going to be plagued with some flooding streets, so be patient with us. We do have augmented staff kind of planned out over the period, so we do have that going for us. As you guys have seen, the garlands have gone up. Thank you, TJ, for the compliment for Public Works, and I wish I could take the credit for it, but the engineering team and Public Works have been really instrumental on that, so thank you for acknowledging that. We should have the rest of the garlands up over the intersections tonight, weather permitting. Let's see, the sandbags, Bedrock Park, I want to touch on that. We did put the fence up around the park roughly 2 months ago. And it's been a nightmare for Public Works and Rodriguez ever since. There's been multiple vandalism, fences being cut, being knocked down, just, it hasn't really served the purpose that we were hoping for. So I did have Rodriguez come out today to remove the portable toilets and the fence. The fence should be all the way down. The only caveat to that is we did leave the staircase and the rock wall that's dilapidated, that's still fenced off. So you'll see some changes there. We have done some electrical work over there, like I mentioned in previous councils. The meter is set. We got some of our wires underground into security boxes, and hopefully we're going to have an answer on what the lighting looks like over this week. Really depends on how the storm treats us and how the Christmas decorations go. So I'll have more update on that.
And we might, if I may, Fred, we might put the fence back up once construction starts, hopefully in the spring. But right now, it's just kind of futile because at nighttime they get driven through, they get ripped apart. They're just every single night they're just destroyed. So it's not effective right now.
Exactly, and I'm not sure if the council is aware, but we did have someone drive through a section of fence. I'm not exactly sure. It looks like they went down the bike lane, they went out into the grass area, did a bunch of donuts. They did a bunch of donuts in the parking lot and then drove back out. So that's where that's at. Now on to the more glorious conversation about the loos. Over Portland loos have been a subject of conversation since I've been here, and it's becoming problematic. Kayla, if you'd like to, there you go. Thank you very much. This photograph was taken, I believe this was at the Centennial Park area. As you can see, there's a few syringes laying on the ground. Public Works staff, this is Centennial Park right here. As a note, at the Salmon Festival in particular, the night of the Salmon Festival dinner, Public Works crews were out there 3 times in one day to clean that restroom, and we used the back door twice out there because of jackets, shoes, cans, whatever. Even one time there was a tent, partial tent flushed into that loo. To the toilet's credit, it's holding up, but we're having habitual issues. So currently with staff time and equipment, we're approaching about $20,000 on trying to keep the loos functional, clean, and the plumbing working. Our latest
is that a pallet in there?
Yes, that is Bedrock Park Lou, and that was that's not from today. That's from a couple of weeks ago. And thank you very much, Ron and Code Enforcement. You guys have been out there cracking down and helping us get this cleaned out. That's the Centennial Park. Could you find that picture with the dogs, please? There you go. I took that picture personally 2 weeks ago. I went out there with the fence up, opened up the loo, and that guy in the foreground there, he bit me on the knee when I opened up the Portland loo. Today, it looks very much the same way. That is a picture from last night of the Portland loo at Bedrock Park. Code Enforcement has been out there working diligently. They cleaned it out, and I was out there today, and the toilet has been backed up again with foreign debris in it. So again, we're about $20,000 roughly in manpower, time, materials, and the rest of it. Our latest anti-theft or vandalism, we spent $1,000 on the Centennial loo door with 2 new locks on it. We paid a contractor to come out and weld square stock or round stock inside the door to stiffen the door, and added 2 very expensive locks. Now it's locked all the time, so it's frustrating to say the least. And we also have the downtown bathroom, which has also been a problem of vandalism. So just trying to report out. There we go. There's our $1,000 locks on the Portland loo. Just on locks itself for the Centennial Park, we're right around $6,000 at this point, because the original lock on the door that was supposed to be vandal resistant, it lasted about a week before somebody super glued it and destroyed the lock. So it's just it's been a bit of a drain on Public Works staff to try to keep these things functional. So I personally go by these things I try to at least once a day, and it's a little bit of frustrating for us. So I just wanted to report that out. I wanted you guys to see where we're at with this, and I think we're seeking direction at how we'd like to proceed.
We hear obviously the issues with the public restrooms quite frequently here during the meetings, and we just wanted to stress to the council and to the public, this is what Public Works is dealing with on a daily basis. I'm not sure if the loos are the long-term solution. I don't know if we need to get cameras out there, but ultimately, it's they're there for the public to use, but when they're continually being destroyed multiple times every single day, it's not working right now. So we got to come up with something different. We've looked at some other solutions. We might come back with some other ideas to bring forward. And again, maybe there needs to be a camera system out there outside of the restrooms that if somebody's out there, OPD's notified right away, or because it's not getting any better.
Councilman Johnston has a question.
Thank you. I have a question for you. Do you have any suggestions on what we should be doing with that?
The average cost for maintaining the Portland loo from people that purchase them is about $15,000 to $45,000 a year. And it's not just in Orville. I mean, that's the average cost of maintaining those. They're expensive to maintain, and it's an unfortunate climate that we live in now. And you listen to people marching here and say people need a place to go to the bathroom, and then we provide that, and this is what you get. So I don't have any. I think that Fred's doing a great job. Public Works is doing a great job. I mean, short of hiring a person to hand out towels in the bathroom and make sure that it's okay. I mean, I think that we've kind of exceeded all of our options at this point. I mean,
I am so disappointed. Bill, do you have any suggestions?
Not really. I'm there's things that you can do, and hopefully, as our, beat this worn out dead horse again, as our staffing increases, hopefully we can get somebody there on a more regular basis. We did this week bring on our community navigators, and that is going to be one of their tasks, is to regularly go by those and ensure that people aren't camping in them and are moving them along, or at least calling the police when they see that they are there to help do that. It's really unfortunate that people abuse a public asset like that.
It's really frustrating, and I commend you and you, Fred, and your teams for managing it as well as you can. It's just very disheartening when the city tries to beautify and make our city better, and people just have no respect for the hard work and the money that goes into it, and it's just very discouraging. Thank you for your hard work.
Thank you.
Councilman Thompson's up in the queue.
Thank you. Yeah, I hate to, when we, don't want to say I told you so, but, when these got presented, this was exact thing that I said would happen. Councilperson who pushed for them to happen was adamant and convinced that this would never happen. So at this point, having him closed and then opening him up for certain events or whatnot where people can be around would be where I'd be at with it.
Okay. Thank you. Just as a side note, too, we did put the portable restrooms over at Bedrock when the fence was up, and one of those was absolutely destroyed, too, in the process. So it kind of spreads out a little bit, just as a side note.
I was going to ask about that. There's two issues that I'd like to raise. One is when we took the floating classroom on the river with the biologist, and which is, by the way, I hope that continues. That was an excellent activity. And we did with a lot of city staff, and I compliment the staff to go because they got to learn about some very interesting species that only exist here in Orrville. The one thing that was brought to my attention was the fact that the debris thrown in the river is actually killing thousands and thousands of salmon eggs. And we saw one carpet that was discarded by this particular population, and the concept is, you're ruining the spawning bed. So since then, I'll let you know that I've met with DWR and asked for some paperwork and some facts and figures about the destruction that occurs. And we might be going down the path of a state law to give a special enhancement protection for endangered species for that section of the river, which is an idea at this point. It's only an idea. And it certainly might be valuable that basically, if someone's there, we would have the same rule that the state parks has in the Public Resources Code to remove illegal campers. Illegal campers are removed from state parks, and we use the same rule to move them out from, this special zone or whatever we want to call it. So that's what we're working on, just to let the public know that. The other thing that when I traveled to Aberdeen, Scotland, pay toilets. Mm-hmm. You pay whatever it was, I think it was 75 cents to use the toilet. And I thought to myself, that's kind of crazy. Now I'm thinking about maybe it's not a bad idea. I mean, just throw it out there. Are there any Portland News that are pay toilets?
That I'm not aware of. I know back in the good old days, I'm going to show my age, I know Greyhound and other places actually had to buy tokens to use the restrooms in their facilities and bus stations, so maybe that's...
I'm not looking to make any income off this, but I think it may become a deterrence. It might be. It just, we're looking for anything because every one of us here have, a blank stare about how to take care of this. And maybe if they were pay toilets.
If you don't mind me saying, if the locks aren't a deterrent, I'm not sure that a pay system would be either. I'm not sure if that's the solution.
And in Scotland, they have the most beautiful restrooms you'll ever see. I just say that because it was my personal experience in Aberdeen and Edinburgh, so something to think about.
We have done a little bit of, I shouldn't say we, Fred has done a little bit of research on other alternatives, and I hate to even consider them because I know that the city invested a lot of money in those loos, right. But there are other alternatives out there that have infrared sensors inside, so if somebody's in there for long periods of time, it could trigger an alarm. Mm-hmm. They're self-cleaning. So there are some other options that might be viable, but I'm leery to invest a lot of money in something that we know is just going to be destroyed 4 hours later.
Well, we do know that the LVT trailer cameras with the blue strobe light does work. So maybe a camera on the outside might be something to caution them that, hey, by the way, we know who's using it, so on and so forth. I just throw it out there because this is a huge investment by the public.
It is.
And the taxpayer dollar, and it's just being literally destroyed by a very small population. And we can't let that happen. I don't know how we're going to fix it, but we can't let that happen, so.
Well,
Appreciate
to the credit of the new locks, the door has not been destroyed as of yet. However, it seems like every time I mention Portland Luz at a council meeting, something happens that night. So
Yeah.
stand by. We might not have a door on it tomorrow. My next option is putting shower curtains on it. So
Yeah.
I say that. in jest.
Vice Mayor Smith is in the queue.
Yeah, thank you, Mr. Mayor. Fred, thank you. I shot you pictures very similar to the ones that you've shared, as you know, in preparation for Salmon Festival. As being one that runs some of our major events here in town, we, of course, utilize portables, and then we guard them as best as possible. And for the most part, we haven't had too much trouble, but I certainly appreciate all the effort and hard work. Because when people come to our community to experience the best that Oroville has to offer, we certainly want them to go with a positive, experience. And then with the DWR floats, they're going to continue and for the years to come, which is really cool. And then they have portables. I've spent the last 5-6 weeks under the Table Mountain Bridge on the weekends as a part of that program. And they have a series of portables. I used them the whole 6 weeks, and they were impeccable. So I don't know and maybe something to learn from how they're operating over there. Not sure. And then just another observation, of course, we're going to be dealing with another issue that's related, I think, to the unhoused tonight. And I'm also hopeful that as we move forward in time, that maybe some of this will be nipped, because when I was getting Salmon Festival prepared that evening, and when I observed that, there was a group of folks out there, and I jammed them up. Why did you do this to the bathroom? And, it was Joe. And they start sharing with me. It's like one or two individuals. So, I don't know how that helps, but it just seems as if that it's unfortunate, but it's always even within that community, right, of the unhoused, it seems like there's always just that one or two bad apples that make it really rough on the rest. So I'm hopeful that as we move forward with some of these other programs and projects to help with that population, that maybe we'll have to lock them up for a season, and then maybe we try it again, that kind of thing, and test the waters, if you will. Yes. Anyway, thank you.
It's definitely a work in progress.
Yeah.
Councilman Riggs is up next.
Thank you.
Thanks. Mr. Ring just spoke to it, but I did a quick Google search, and there are alarm systems that will detect sustained use or somebody hanging out in there for too long. Yes. I don't know what the average bathroom time might be, but a very annoying alarm that continues to persist until the bathroom is evacuated might be helpful as well.
Thank you. And one of the opportunities, I'll call it, one of the vendors out there, it's a kind of a programmable alarm system, and it's ran off of microwave or infrared, one of them. But you can time it from 3 minutes up to 15 minutes, and it knows there's something in there, and it gives a very unpleasant audible alarm. And so.
Perfect. I sent you a link to one I found.
I just seen it. Thank you.
Councilman Johnstone.
Thank you. I agree with the alarm. However, I'm thinking, what if we just put some cameras outside of the bathroom so we can at least see who's bringing stuff in? Sure. And, obviously privacy, we wouldn't want to put it in there, but outside and around the Luz, and see, so we at least have the opportunity to know who's doing it, and then, prosecute.
Tyson was just pinging me a few minutes ago. It sounds like we can actually get some cameras out there deployed relatively easy. So I'll definitely
as a
follow
start.
up on that. Absolutely.
Thank you.
Thanks. I have one other piece, sorry, I feel like I'm taking the whole thing here, is, as you all know, Montgomery and Myers, the striping has been completed for a few exceptions, and that's the crosswalks and the green line. The green line is coming. Had some issues that we had to deal with the contractor, but those look like they're resolved now. The weather is moving in. The sidewalks will be getting striped, and the green line will be getting striped in the next week or two. So please don't think it fell off. It's out there, and there's some things going on in the background. We're working on to get that taken care of.
So we have Councilman Weber in a question, though.
Yes, sir.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. And thank you for the update about those, because I was just thinking about that today, and I was assuming it was due to weather conditions or whatever. So So I wanted to add to the discussion about the Portland Loos. I think that many of us have said that probably closing them now would be the option and then opening them for special events. Clearly, you guys are dealing with you got your hands full, literally.
Yes.
But something, the alarms are great ideas and stuff like that. But, this council's also been working proactively toward adopting and building and implementing programs. Obviously, heavy investment in code enforcement, and they've been doing a fantastic job for a long time. The MLE program, now we have 2 full-time community navigators. In fact, one of them just walked in. We're about to adopt this no camping ordinance. Prop 36 passed. The CARE Court is about to go into effect. Mission Esperanza is about to go into effect too. So in other words, what we've been doing is working toward a really comprehensive wraparound service plan to address these issues. So I think that as we roll into 2025, me personally, and I think everybody in this room is probably extremely hopeful that we're going to start seeing some results that will actually hopefully mitigate some of this kind of behavior, because we're going to be able to mandate care with Prop 36, and CARE Court will also do the same thing. And the no camping ordinance, which would help along what you're talking about, Mr. Mayor, with debris going into the water, because we absolutely need to mitigate that. That's just ridiculous. And how do we do that is we got to go and get those folks out of there. So all of these things, respectfully, they're all going to work together. And I think it's going to give you more tools, all of you, right, to build something that that we could give to our community that will reap extremely good benefits. So. But for now, I think the answer would be while we're working toward those objectives, because we've been building the system. Now it's about to go into motion. I think the answer is definitely lock them up. On Bedrock Park,
Yes.
You and I briefly spoke the other day about the LED lights. I'm hoping you'll do some super bright, LED lights that'll illuminate that whole thing to deter that element from going in there and doing that. Because light, it helps, So I know Brian Wong's sitting back there, and when he lit up the depot, did it help your situation back there? It did, huh?
Yeah.
So, yeah.
We have a couple of vendors I think we're going to be bringing forward, maybe in late December, maybe early January, with some lighting options that we could use as potential pilots. And they're solar. I know of a few agencies that are actually using these as streetlights. They're very powerful and can be very effective in areas where copper theft is an issue, and Bedrock is one of those possible places. So there'll be more coming on that. And yes, we are looking at LED. It's the way to go. They're the brightest and the most efficient at this point. So there'll be more follow-up on that.
Okay.
So.
Yep. Thank you. And then my last comment is, and I'm in agreement with my wife and I were just talking about, because we live on Bird Street. We travel Montgomery like most of us do every single day. And I absolutely could tell that people are slowing down. So I was skeptical when you were talking about this narrowing, and I was thinking, come on. But I believe it's working. I really do. So bravo. Good job on that.
Thank you. I got to give all the credit to our engineering staff and to all the public works folks. They make it look easy for me. So they make our department look great, and it's their sacrifice that's doing it. So I want to make sure all that credit goes to them. So I will definitely pass that on to them. Just as one other sidebar for Montgomery Street, we do have a couple of the self-reporting radar signs that are coming up very soon, and we're looking at maybe some potential LED beacon flashing lights at the crosswalks near the Catholic Church up there on the bookends of the block there. For hopefully they'll be programmable, so the flashing beacons will be on crosswalk during school beginning and end times, because there's quite a bit of traffic there. And I promise I'm going to turn off my microphone now.
So would that be a static display?
Yeah, the radar signs, yeah, they're self-report. So it'll have a 25 mile an hour on it, and it'll have a small radar screen underneath it, and it'll tell you what your actual speed is.
And the 25 mile an hour?
Yeah, it looks like a regular speed limit sign with a radar LED screen on the bottom of it, telling you what the posted speed is. That's something new that we did on Montgomery too. We actually put the speed limit, a legend on the road coming down into town. It shows 25 on the road now. So that's something new, and that's a standard that we're actually going forward with. So good. Thank you for the positive feedback.
I see Vice Mayor Smith in the queue.
Yeah, I just wanted to follow up real quick. You know, whenever we do our major events, whether it's like the Parade of Lights coming up or the other Fiesta Days, of course, we deploy bathrooms just for that event. So, you know, that won't. I'd much rather have a facility locked up and protected than folks visiting our community and being, you know, subject to that. So, but I'm just saying that you doing that's not going to hurt our events because we take care of it.
Okay.
Okay, good to know. Thank you, sir.
All right. Thank you, Fred.
Thank you.
Mr. Belser, you ready?
I didn't share my October stats last meeting because it was election night, so we could get out of here and enjoy the election. But in October, we ended with 149 active cases in code enforcement. We closed 65 cases and opened 60 new ones. We removed 9 abandoned vehicles, had 5 code violation cases, 21 graffiti cases, 5 multifamily cases, 38 public nuisance cases, 2 substandard housing cases, and 1 new vacant building monitoring where we found an individual that was maintaining the building. It wasn't trying to rent it or remodel it or anything, so they pay for us to go by once a month and inspect it, make sure no one's squatting in there or damaging their building. As far as like ideas and stuff, you have to remember that people that are involved in criminal activity, they do not like light, they do not like noise, and they don't like people that can see what they're doing. Mm-hmm. So those are the 3 things that we should always move towards and, you know, try to get as much staffing as we can with law enforcement and training and get them out on the street and make them what we like to call blue flames that are out there, you know, taking care of business. And but anytime we can move towards cameras, lights, and anything that'll make noise, the cemetery, the Chinese cemetery, they have they play obnoxious music all night. The homeless won't go anywhere near there or camp anywhere near there. And, you know, and Marcosi's did it for a long time at their corner just to try to keep people away from there at nighttime. So lights, noise, and observation. Bad people hate that.
I like it. I like it. Thank you. I should mention, too, that the staff, the DWR staff, especially the fish biologist, she complimented your work on cleaning up the levee because as they've been going up and down the levee, they certainly have seen a considerable difference in work that you've done to remove the camps because it was a huge problem that you well know about, but she did offer those compliments. So
I appreciate that. It is a revolving door. It's not a problem that'll ever get solved.
Right.
You just have to try to manage it. You know, I would like, you know, some more support from the state because that is their property, their territory, and we're willing to help, you know, in whatever direction possible. But it would be nice to get support from them as well. Thank you.
That. Okay, who else? Department heads? Ruth is smiling.
It's my turn. I was excited to introduce you to our new accounting manager that started a week ago Tuesday, but he had to leave. So maybe next time I can go first.
Okay.
I can introduce him to you. Also, 2 weeks ago, I had a oversight committee meeting and we reviewed the sales tax revenue during that meeting, and it was the first time in 10 years that I had to let everybody know that our sales tax did not come in as projected. It was actually a little bit short, upwards of around 10%. But the general fund wasn't as bad. We don't have that much revenue as the district tax does, but I will be bringing that back to you with the full analysis. So just wanted to let you know that some information was given to an oversight committee, but I'd also like you to receive the information too. So nobody on the committee was surprised with the economy last year. Everybody thought that was pretty normal for the kind of year we had. So more to come on that later.
That's the first time Measure U has actually seen a decrease. Yeah, thank you. All right, who's next?
I'll go Amy? Okay. I'll just go really quick. We have I just want to remind the council that staff have been working on bringing back the fireworks discussion. We'll be bringing that back on the first meeting in December. And again, the idea here is there's going to be a couple options that the council gave direction on, but then also one of those options was to look into setting some sort of a criteria that would trigger the prohibition of lighting fireworks and selling fireworks. So we've been working with fire on that one, and we'll be bringing something back on the 3rd for additional input.
Okay. Mr. Legron, you have anything, police department?
No, sorry.
Okay. Patrick? You sure? You've been
I don't
busy.
have anything tonight.
You've been busy lately.
I have a lot going on, but nothing exciting to report tonight.
Okay,
Yep.
thank you. All right, next item to consider is the consent calendar. Council have any issues on the consent calendar? If not, I would entertain a motion.
I move that we adopt the consent calendar.
We got a movement? We have a second? Oh, I'm sorry, I didn't hear it. Call the roll, please.
Motion passes with 6 yeses and 1 absent.
All right. Next item is regular business, public safety facility maintenance. Mr. Legron.
Mr. Mayor, respectfully, I would request or suggest to Councilperson Johnstone and Councilperson Weber that they recuse themselves from this item because they may have a abstract financial interest in the item.
All right, thank you, sir.
Or as a quorum.
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah, we're good. Yeah.
By one?
We're good.
Yeah, I was counting 3.
All right.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor and
Right.
Council. What you have before you tonight is consideration of the payment for services that were received at the public safety facility. Maintenance was done on the facility as far as striping that was on the ground for the public, the handicap accessible pathway, parking spots, curb markings, planter. All of the planters in the hardscape were cleaned. All of the various things that had been left in there over years was removed. Weed barrier was put in, and then rock material was put on top of that to freshen those up. The bushes were all trimmed around the facility. There were fence repairs that were necessary. There were stumps that needed to be removed that had been of trees that had been removed years prior. Some of the stumps had grown. I don't know if it's the proper name for it, but a sucker, a little stick that comes out of the side. But the stick had become so big it looked like a tree and had grown around the fence and was disrupting the fence and also the asphalt in the ground on the property. All of the slats were old redwood slats. That is an old building technique. It's not used any longer, so that's how old these were. They were, a vast majority of them were missing. They were very difficult to get out, and they were replaced with the new, a newer material. I believe it's PVC that was put into the fencing to correct all that. So there was many hours of labor that went on there. The total cost of all of the projects was approximately $22,000 for all of that. Butte Community Service was utilized for this services. The reason why Butte Community Service was identified as the provider of the services because we have already a working agreement with them through the City Works program where they provide labor for them as well. So we had used them to provide the labor to do these jobs. So what the department is requesting tonight is just authorization to pay for the labor for this project, which is approximately $13,000, $13,150, Mr. Mayor.
Council have any questions? Councilman Riggs.
Thank you. I will qualify this by saying I fully believe that all of this work needed to have been done and that everyone had best of intentions in getting this work done efficiently. Although it is my belief that such projects and reoccurring maintenance should go through a fair bid practice. And so for that, I will be voting no, but I do say and want to say I understand and recognize that this work needed to be done and support that work being done, though it should have went through a fair bidding process.
Okay. I myself was up in the queue. When I had the fire department years ago, we used to do this work every Sunday at Oroville Fire Department, and we never got paid for it. So I'm kind of sitting there going, wait a minute. That was our Sunday activities. And I don't know if, Chris, you remember that at all, but certainly understand there's been a question of operations and maintenance. I would be more happy to pay this if we knew that Public Works or Parks didn't have the ability to do the work or lacked the time. So that would have been a nice thing to have as part of this payment, so that we know that, you know, it wasn't available from the city's perspective. And I have no problem in the work that was done. It certainly was done, and we do owe, you know, the amount. But it's been kind of a struggle for that facility to have operations and maintenance done. We used to, like I say, back in the day when I was on the job, the guys had to mow the lawns, cut the trim, and all this stuff that we're talking about. In fact, sadly, I want to tell you, those redwood slats were actually cut by firemen because our chief at the time didn't want to pay the price of them. And we sat down there with the table saw and cut every one of those slats off wood trim. And you know what I'm talking about. So it's probably more than time to replace those. I have no problem in doing that. But you can imagine the labor it took to do that, but that's another story. I believe we were up to 4 or 5 saw blades on the table saw. So it is what it is. I would like to have seen the city staff do as much as they could have done, but I don't know that that was done or if that was included in the process. So Vice Mayor Smith has a comment.
Yeah, I appreciate Councilwoman Riggs' comments, and I think that probably an RFP on work of this nature is probably in order. However, as a matter of, I think, we have a staff that work with a valid contractor, and so assuming that this doesn't go through, we have a bill. This is more of a legal question. So we have an administrator with a signing authority that authorized this work to be done. The work was completed. The contractor has expenses, they salaries, materials that were, that now become a part of the property of the city of Warville. So from a legal standpoint, tonight we don't approve this. That means this bill doesn't get paid. Then what recourse then does that contractor have, given the fact that a city staff person authorized this work that had some level of ability to do that? Where are we at on the legal end of that?
So non-payment of an invoice would certainly be likely to create a dispute between a contractor and the city. Beyond that, I couldn't give you sort of guidance without knowing what that dispute would, what form that dispute would take shape on. So the city typically does, when it approves work being done, pay its bills. And then if there is an issue with how it was approved, we fix that and move forward with changes as you might prescribe for everybody at the city moving forward.
Yeah, because I appreciate, looking back, this was a significant amount of work, and you could certainly, I think, articulate, there may have been a better or a different path taken. But the work was done, and I, just to repeat myself, there was expenses to that contractor. So in my view, though I may not like it, I still feel that we have a responsibility to take care of the contractor and then moving forward, make whatever corrective actions are necessary to prevent this from happening in the future.
I'm sure that all the city staff is open to receiving direction as to changes they could make moving forward.
Okay.
Councilman Thompson's in the queue.
Yeah, I share sentiments with Councilman Smith. I know we've already rectified the process. This isn't, I've been here 8 years, this isn't a recurring problem. This isn't something that's ongoing or happened before where, so I don't think it's, as a council person, especially with a active contractor who we have a great relationship with, to penalize them for our own processes. It's been clarified. In fact, you acted within your authority of amount per month that was issued, correct?
Yes, sir.
Yeah.
Where this jumped off track, just so everybody knows, is it was a series of a bunch of little jobs that would not precipitate an RFP or anything like that.
I get that. And so my point is that there was already been, prior to this, some of this is already communicating to the public, things we've already discussed. So as far as processes has already been clarified, I don't see this as a recurring problem. I don't see it happening again. And again, for me to penalize community services for our own processes, them giving a service to the community and then expecting fair pay. I think it's appropriate for us to pay somebody to do what they've done. And again, we've already fixed our process. Obviously, hindsight is 20/20, but I think I would have a really hard time if no matter who it is, whether it's Butte Community Services or anybody, for this council to act in such a way where we don't pay somebody who's done a service for the city. So anyway, our process has been clarified and fixed, and so I don't see this happening again, and I 100% will be voting in favor of approving this evening.
Okay. Oh, Councilman Riggs is back out in the queue.
Thank you. As for processes being fixed, I know that we have discussed new policies that would not make this type of situation occur again, but I've yet to see that or approve that as a council member. And so is that a future agenda item?
We have a list, it's called a CUPCA list, which is I'm not going to remember, the California Uniform Purchasing, forgive me, forgot to remember. Essentially what it does, it allows a local jurisdiction to have a number of contractors already on board that can do either landscape work, painting, HVAC, electrical, whatnot. So we sent out a letter to all contractors that are on the state list, and we're formulating that list now. So in the future, when we have these types of issues, if Public Works doesn't have the capacity, or the Parks Division doesn't have the capacity, a department head can use that list, provided they have appropriations in their budget, then to draw off that list to go forward. So it doesn't need any additional, I guess, council action for the policy, but it is something that has been in place and is being refreshed right now. Very close to being done.
During our last discussion on this, personally, we had also discussed a limit for invoices to any one company for the year that would trigger additional review. And I haven't seen anything regarding that moving forward also.
Yeah, but I did check, and I know the system, I believe, it does not have we don't have a mechanism for that, right? To flag it at like a certain threshold.
We have a threshold for department heads to spend up to $10,000.
But as far as we will look into that, as far as a certain vendor hitting a certain amount, correct?
No.
Okay.
And then also, yeah, we should pay our bills.
Yeah.
And I still fully expect the other council members to vote yes and to have that bill paid. I just won't be a part of it.
Any other questions? Do we have any comment cards on this item?
We do not, sir.
Okay.
Mr. Mayor,
Yes, sir.
just
Oh, I'm
one.
sorry, I didn't see
Yeah,
that.
and just in reviewing the billing, it does stretch over 3 months, so it certainly falls within your purview.
5 months.
I'm just, yeah. Yeah, so just to make that clear with the public, that this work was over a duration of months, but it came in kind of all at once, and so that's what triggered this response.
We wanted to promote the transparency of this too, because it's a lot of money, and when somebody sees that and you say, hey, it's landscaping, it's like you paid somebody $22,000 to mow your yard. No, we did not. I mean, there was a bunch of different work, so we wanted to be as transparent as we possibly could with the community about what we're spending their dollars on.
Yeah, but I think it is important to make clear that it was over months
Yes,
of
sir.
time. Yeah, so.
Okay.
I make a motion that we approve.
I second.
Call the roll, please.
Per stated in the agenda. How's that? Not to exceed $13,150.
Yes. That's, yeah.
Motion passes with 3 guesses, 1 no, 2 recused.
Bring it back in.
One
Okay,
absent.
item number 6 coming up is an agreement with Clean Right, Build Right for repairs and water barrier to be completed at City Hall basement.
Yes.
Fred,
Good evening, folks.
do we have pictures with this one or not?
I don't. I have a couple before pictures on my phone.
That's all right.
I can get them
just-
to council.
No.
So, long of the short of it is that we have window wells in the basement area. Last year, it flooded. We lost some documents. We lost other things, and we had a mold issue. We got the mold mediated within the last few months, but the the main reason why we're getting water into our basement has not been addressed yet. I found recently, going down there with the mold folks, that the window wells were not properly abandoned. And the one window well that's still in existence actually has plywood where the window is. There's spray foam insulation, and we have electrical conduits penetrating it. To build on that, to make it even better, is that the discharge line on the sump pump in the basement actually discharges right back into the window well. So we have a recirculating fountain down there, essentially, which is the root cause of all of the mold. We do actually have a clean bill of health. It seems like this has been going on for some time. We have no mold in the building. We removed it. The air is clean down there. It's sanitized. We've thrown away probably 20 yards of material, books and filing and just things that we haven't seen the light of day since probably the 90s. We've cleaned out a considerable amount in the basement, and now we have it sanitized. What we're coming to the council for is Clean Right, Build Right are the folks that actually did the mold remediation. I had a couple other, one contractor was no response. Another one said he wouldn't touch it. Clean Right, Build Right said they could actually get in, frame out the windows correctly. We're going to have to demo the concrete in the breezeway, expose the windows that are still in place, remove them, and backfill correctly. Put a water barrier on the wall because the water is actually weeping into the basement, around the windows and through the wall because it's concrete. We have to address this or we're going to have the same issue again by the end of winter, that we're going to have a very bad mold issue downstairs. This would also include the water barrier, the abandonment of the wells, and a new sump pump. And the sump pump is, judging by the way it looks and my understanding of mechanics, it looks like it's probably from the 50s, so it's probably about due to be replaced as well. And that's why we're coming to council to ask for this to get done. This is kind of an emergency thing. We have the mold done, winter's upon us, and we need to get this work done very quickly. So,
Any questions from council?
Nope.
No. I would add it was probably Harold that put that sump pump in. He was the maintenance guy back in the 70s. It also, I would include some kind of ventilation or air exchange there because the air exchange down there is terrible. And I don't believe there is a fresh air inlet other than those windows, and I wouldn't use the windows because they're below grade, so.
Exactly.
I would think some kind of fresh air insertion ought to be put there because it's never really had it that I know of, and it's been a while.
For a basement, it actually smells almost kind of fresh down there right now. If you guys like to do a tour, I'd be more than happy to open the door and have you guys go down. There's 4 window wells downstairs. The one has the plywood in it. The other couple that are down there, the actual puttied window pane iron windows are still there. And from what I can judge, this all came to light when the mold samples happened. Hey, the window won't open. Can you open the window so we can vent? Well, we can't because the electrical conduit for the solar is actually blocking the windows. And then it became apparent that when they poured the concrete in the back, they just abandoned the window wells and they never properly abandoned the windows. So the windows frames are rotting out, they're rusted. So we're actually going to physically pull the windows this time.
I would add too that you put some armor plating in there so people can't break in. That has been a common break-in point to get into the basement, so.
So the current one where the electrical conduits are going in, we're actually going to brick that off.
Right.
The other 2, we're going to open up the concrete, we're going to dig down, abandon them properly, and the concrete will be poured back over. So there'll be no physical way to get into those windows.
Vice Mayor Smith is in the queue.
You got to put do we have an alarm on that sump?
On the sump, no, there is not.
Because I have a basement. I added an alarm to my sump pump this last year. Yeah, it's a lifesaver. Because then you know when the water is not flowing where it needs to go.
Yeah.
I like that. That's a great suggestion.
Yeah, and they're super cheap.
Perfect. Thank you.
All right. We have no comment cards on this item.
We do not, sir.
All right. I entertain a motion.
So moved.
I'll second. Call roll, please.
Motion passes with 6 yeses, 1 absent.
All right. Item number 7, Fire Protection Services update and request for contract extension with the California Department of Forestry and Fire Protection, CAL FIRE for fire protection services. Mr. Ring.
All right, thank you. Yeah, I'll kick this off, and I do have Chief Thames and Chief Sholin here from the fire department to certainly fill in some of the blanks that I won't be able to fill in. What I thought we'd do here, so the city has historically had its own fire department. That was a city-ran fire department, and about 2.5 years ago, contracted out with CAL FIRE for fire protection services. We are at the contract expires in June of 25, so we're at the point now where obviously it's time to entertain a new contract, negotiate a new contract with CAL FIRE. So I thought it would be an opportune time to share with the council. I know this council has some new council members that weren't on the council during the process. So what I wanted to do is at least kind of share, how we got to the point where we're at today, some of the differences in the service levels, talk about some of the costs, and then deliberate and get some direction. So. So background information, staffing summary, service analysis, cost analysis, and then we'll talk about next steps. So overall, again, the city contracts with CAL FIRE for personnel services. So again, that is for labor. All the facilities, the infrastructure, the engines, all the equipment, all that is city owned. The contract with CAL FIRE for personnel service expires June 30th, 2025. Historically, again, there's been 2 models in the last 5-6 years. Both of them, I think, from what I've heard, have been provided very effective fire protection services for the community. Today's presentation isn't designed to say this one's better than this one, because I think, as you'll see, both models have definite differences, and both models have, I would say, nice nuances for this model versus different nuances for this model. And maybe when we get to the end here, we can even try to incorporate some of this. All right, next slide. Thank you. Staffing summary. So again, with both models, the OFD, Orville Fire Department, and CAL FIRE model, both models have historically provided 18 firefighter personnel. With the change from the OFD model to the CAL FIRE model, the contract does include, I should say, dispatch services. So prior to this, we had 2 FTEs for dispatch that we no longer are using for fire dispatch. The apparatuses, right now we both before and now we staff 2 apparatuses, 1 engine and 1 ladder truck. And OFD had a 56-hour work week, and this is one of the nuances that is certainly different. And CAL FIRE has utilized a 72-hour work week, and I know we talked about it at the last council meeting. That'll be shifting, and you'll see on a slide here in a moment, that'll be shifting downwards. But with a 56-hour work week versus a 72-hour work week, that resulted in more staff hours that were available for city fire protection services. And I believe the difference there was with CAL FIRE, you have 3 staff members per apparatus, whereas before we had 2 staff members per apparatus. Next slide, please. Again, CAL FIRE will be moving to a 66-hour work week. We discussed this at the last meeting. This reduction in hours is going to require 3 additional fire personnel. So now the staff, it will be going from 18 fire personnel up to 21. It's believed that the state will eventually move. There's talk about a 56, and I know the mayor mentioned maybe even further down as far as the hours being reduced per work week in the next few years. We do know that looking at the staffing, the schedule right now for firefighters, which is extremely complicated, and I know Chief has explained it to me a couple times, and it's when you have people working 24-hour shifts, it just gets complicated to make sure you have enough staff available. But with this change, with the addition of 3 additional staff, if and when the state does move to a 56-hour work week, no additional staff will be needed. There'll be enough hours to cover those shifts. Next slide, please. The city does contract right now with CAL FIRE for essential maintenance for fire vehicles. This really is irrelevant, in my opinion, to the fire contract. This is more of it's an issue that we were having with staffing in public works, and we felt it was appropriate at the time to contract with CAL FIRE to provide the maintenance service work on all the fire apparatuses. And at some point in time in the future we can revisit that, but right now it seems like that process is working well. A couple other nuances that are differences here. The fire marshal duties were with Orville Fire Department, those were duties that were taken on by OFD. Right now, and also weed abatement duties, those also were done by OFD. Currently, we are contracting for a fire marshal. We've contracted with a fire marshal that we have for 2 days a week right now, and I'd have to say this has been something that the chief and Pat and I have talked about numerous times, and we will be likely bringing something before the council because we need more than 2 days a week for fire marshal duties. There's no question about it. The weed abatement has been taken on by our code enforcement team. They've done a great job. I would say I think the weed abatement costs about $45,000 a year. Recruitment, collective bargaining, managing personnel matters, all that with the contract shifts from the city to the state. And absences right now they're covered obviously with a larger pool of employees. If you do have a number of absences, they can be covered immediately by state fire personnel. All right, service analysis. And I'm going to talk a little bit about more of a OFD, or granted, I wasn't here with OFD, but certainly with a city-ran fire department. These are some of the nuances I think that are highlights of what the benefits are of a city-ran fire department. And again, these lists aren't intended to be all-inclusive, but certainly with a city-ran fire department, local control, fire department operates under the authority of the city. You can definitely have more autonomy, whether or not, for example, if you wanted to have 2 staff per engine or 3 staff per engine, or maybe you want 2 on one engine, maybe you want 3 on a ladder truck, you want 2 on an engine. Again, it gives you more prerogative where the contract with the state actually requires three firefighters per engine. Familiarity with the city. This is something that, those folks that are working in a city-operated fire department, they might have more familiarity with the city because, again, with the CAL FIRE model, we have some staff. Well, granted, some staff are there on a routine basis. You might have some staff that aren't as familiar with the city coming on and working out of that station at any given time. Specialized services, again, this kind of piggybacks, I think, with familiarity with the city. A city-ran department, fire department, you can certainly tailor your needs to different issues. If we wanted to do more focus on hazardous material response or EMT medical responses, if it gets back to, again, having a little bit more autonomy within your operations of the department. You have a little bit more flexibility, whereas obviously with the contract, we're contracting for services, and some of those services may or may not be available. The economic benefits, establishing and maintaining a local fire department could have, obviously, I think it would have high upfront costs, but certainly over time, we'll look at some cost figures here in a moment. I would say there's the potential, again, local control, you have a little bit more autonomy, whereas you could control your costs a little differently, whereas if the state model, if the state says contract, they negotiate a deal with the labor, or they change the rules as far as what the work week goes. If there's a change in regulations, you're at the mercy sometimes of what the state may bring down. Administrative, city-ran fire departments may be able to streamline some of the decision-making processes. Again, some of the city staff, they're just going to be more familiar with the city processes that might not be there with a state-contracted personnel. So those are some of the, again, not intended to be all of the benefits or the differences of a city-ran or city-operated fire department, but those are just some of the highlights that jumped out to us when we were putting this together. And I want to talk a little bit about the state fire model, and I'm going to actually have Chief Tens come up because some of these things are much better spoken by a fire professional than myself.
Good evening, Council.
Hey.
Happy to be here.
Welcome.
I just want to start off that CAL FIRE Butte unit is honored to serve the community, and hopefully we get the chance to continue that. And please excuse my head down a little bit. I did make some notes tonight. Keep me on topic and not talk all night because I can do that. So I'm going to cover some of the operational benefits under a cooperative fire protection agreement, and this is some of the benefits that the city reaps right now and hopefully into the future as well. So access to additional resources. We talked a lot about this initially during the contract several years ago, 2.5 years ago or so. But really what that means is Oroville now automatically receives resources from CAL FIRE, Butte County Fire, Paradise, Gridley, Biggs, all of them, including fire engines, bulldozers, hand crews, and aircraft. This access is streamlined and no longer requires requesting help, resources, or deployed automatically based on need. So basically what I'm saying with that is before Oroville Fire did have access to that, but there was a process to get us there. And it was usually an approval process based off the availability of resources. And now the city will automatically receive those resources, basically no questions asked. Number 2, extension of resources. Automatic closest resource, regardless of jurisdictional boundaries, Orville now receives the closest available resource. All city equipment is equipped with MDTs, mobile data terminals, and the Emergency Communication Center, ECC, tracks the nearest resource to ensure rapid deployment. And the MDTs now, the difference between a closest resource between Orville Fire and CAL FIRE is now that all city equipment is equipped with MDTs, and that's a tracking device essentially for all the resources in the city, and our CAD system and dispatch automatically grabs the closest resource. And before, how that worked is we would dispatch the closest resource, but it was kind of based off where the stations were located. And now it's based off where the apparatus is located. So there may be the Palermo engine may be at Food Max, and CAD's automatically going to grab that resource, where before that communication wasn't there. It was more of from dispatch to dispatch, asking for resources, and sometimes there could be some kickback if an engine wasn't available. This new system shows the availability of every resource. Number 3, enhanced response, large-scale incident response. So before the agreement, Orville Fire Department had limited resources, and any SIMO incidents required requesting help from Butte County Fire, CAL FIRE, or another surrounding agency. With the new agreement, Orville does automatically receive a full response every emergency within the city, even if multiple incidents are happening at the same time, ensuring no delays except for travel times or response times. So prior to the contract, if there was a structure fire downtown and all of our resources were committed to that Orville Fire, and there was say another water rescue or something, there was an approval process and a request to get those resources. Butte County Fire has always been a great partner to Orville Fire. They always seem to help us out, but now that's just automatic. You're going to get it. So if the Orville Battalion Chief is busy, you're going to get the next closest Battalion Chief automatically, no questions asked. Number 4, additional support, training and safety. This is a big one. This is the behind the scenes stuff you don't really see out on the road, the shiny stuff, but the city of Orville benefits from CAL FIRE countywide cooperative programs, which include firefighter training and safety services. The CAL FIRE Training Bureau ensures that all Orville firefighters are up to date, and mandated trainings are recorded and record keeping, which is critical for maintaining compliance and preparedness. So we have a staff. CAL FIRE Butte County Fire has a staff at headquarters that's full with a battalion chief and several fire captains, and their whole role is to ensure that firefighters are receiving the proper training, and anything new that comes out, anything that's new and developing comes out, hits our folks. So there's a whole workforce behind making sure that all that training is being performed and done. Number 5, the interagency teams. We talked about this as well a couple years ago, but Orville now has access to a variety of specialized countywide interagency teams for incidents requiring advanced experts, including rope rescue, water rescue, hazardous material teams. This expands the city's ability to respond to complex emergencies, and those teams were available before, but now we're all wearing the same patch. So before I was on the hazmat team, when I was Orville Fire, I was a glow bug for a minute, but we kind of operated under different policies, which we all came together and got the mission done. But now we all wear the same patch and meet the mission under the same policies. This is a big one, number 6, centralization of dispatch. So improved 911 dispatch and ECC support. The agreement also centralizes 911 dispatch services, which now operate more efficiently and with enhanced capabilities. The ECC is staffed with emergency medical dispatchers, EMDs, trained personnel to talk our constituents through medical emergencies on scene that wasn't provided before. So our EMD dispatchers can actually help deliver babies, coach through CPR and so on and such. That wasn't provided before. Those calls were transferred to Butte EMS to walk those patients through, which wasn't necessarily a bad thing, but it was just another step in the process. Now we're just taking care of that. I think next slide, please. So here's some of the administrative benefits. Requirement recruitment and retention is no longer a city responsibility. So before, it's a long, drawn-out, expensive process before with Oroville Fire. We would have to hire a background investigator and put our folks through that, and it was just time-consuming. It'd eat, some of my time up, and battalion chiefs and HR with the city as well. But now, statewide, that is taken care of. Pension liability is no longer city direct responsibility. The cost for that, there is some liability, but the costs are included in the contract. And I think we talk about that a little bit, right?
Yeah, and we'll talk about it a little bit, but just to highlight that again, the city still owns pension obligations to every single firefighter that worked for Oroville Fire Department. The unfunded liability that will maintain, and as long as those folks are drawing a pension. But every new, obviously going forward with the contract, the state is going to bake that cost, which is for current costs, and they have to anticipate whatever their unfunded cost would be. That's going to be baked into the contract. So you're paying as you go now, but you still do have a unfunded liability for all your prior obligations.
And let me ask a question, if I may, at this point. We will still pay those pension obligations by the contract because it's in the contract cost for their employees.
Absolutely. So it is in, and let me, if we get to we'll talk about that more
Okay.
in the cost for
That'd be
sure.
fine.
Yeah.
Elimination of workers' compensation liability for the city, so the city no longer has to front the cost of that sort of thing when firefighters get hurt and whatnot. Options to consolidate resources for future cost savings, that's a huge one. Within Oroville Fire, it was all on Oroville Fire's back. So if we wanted to expand, the whole cost was going to be there. Within this cooperative agreement, there are some options, and I can't say what they are or what they would be, but there's a lot of options that we could look at for future cost savings for potential fire stations or other things that are just shared that are beneficial to the county, the state, and the cities as well. And we always work on that kind of stuff behind the scenes, just to ensure that we're saving as much money as we can for every contract. The city's no longer responsible for labor negotiations. That's a good and bad thing, as we just discussed with the 66-hour last council meeting. But those have been long drawn out in the past, and now, unfortunately, those things just come in front of council, and some of them are good and some of them are bad. But I do want to end with CAL FIRE strives to maintain the Oroville Fire identity. I still maintain that, and I expect my folks, and we carry a large tradition behind us, and we haven't forgot about that, and we continue with that. But I do want to say that we're honored to serve the community, and we hope to continue working for the citizens of this community. And I thank you for your time.
Thank you.
Thanks, Chief. All right. Now we'll get to some cost analysis here. So what I've tried to do here is, and boy, that's really small. Okay. I should have brought my glasses. Are the numbers on there?
Yes, they are.
Yeah.
Bar, huh? Okay, so the first bar is, oh boy. Yeah. I have someone here with some really good eyes.
The first bar reads $3,841,265.
So what I did here, there's 6 bars up there. The first 3 bars that you see are our last 3 years with Oroville Fire Department, City Ran Fire Department, and the 4th and 5th bar. God, I wish I wish we could
These
see
two?
the
4th and 5th right here?
years and everything on here. Yeah, those are the actual costs with CAL FIRE, and then the last bar is the projected cost with CAL FIRE, and again that includes the increase of about, I think we did $400,000. I'll take it back. Thank you. Yeah, that includes an additional $404,000 for the 66-hour work week. But so for the first 2 years, you can see it gradually ticked up. It was about $3.8 million in the first year, and that's 1920. And then the second bar is 4.2 in 2021. In 21-22, that third bar, it spiked up to $4.8 million. And the reason why it did that was the last year we were with Oroville Fire Department. So there were some health-related payouts there. So realistically, the operational cost that year would have been more like 4.15 or 4.2. So it looks higher than it actually would have been if we hypothetically stayed with Oroville Fire. The fourth bar there is the first year with CAL FIRE, and that's $5.265 million. And that costs, so the first 3 bars are labor, operations, pension, everything. The fourth bar there is the contract cost, as well as all the other costs that the city has, the operational costs, fuel, equipment, and then also any pension costs for like the unfunded liability. That's where the city is still paying that unfunded liability portion for its employees. But within the contract itself, the cost for the contract itself for that first year in 22-23 was $4.6 million. And out of that $4.6 million, Mr. Mayor, this is what I think we were talking about the pension. That includes whatever formula that the state has. They bake in their pension cost into that $4.6 million contract, and they have to guess. I mean, they know what they can predict what their current costs are, but as you all have seen with the unfunded liabilities going up and down year to year, they have to do a forecasted estimate on that, and that's something that you're at the mercy there, because that could change year to year. You have a good year on investments, and you're not going to see as much of a pension cost for your UAL. But then if you have a bad year on investments, the UAL, like we would see, goes up. So that fourth bar is $5.6 million. That's an actual cost. The fifth bar, $5.5 million. Again, that's actual cost. Again, that's contract cost of $4.9 plus $590,000 in operational costs. And that sixth bar is projected to be about $6 million, and that includes, again, $400,000 for the increase in the 66-hour work week. So you kind of see a spike there, and that's what the reason is for that spike. But the contract would have been, I believe, $5 million, a little over $5 million was the initial cost. So plus the operations of about $600,000, plus $400,000 for the 66-hour work week, then you see the total cost being about $6 million. Mm-hmm. Next slide, please. So what I wanted to do here is I'm trying to be as analytical as I can and say, okay, what if the city still stayed with Orrville Fire Department? How would the last 2.5 years look? So the methodology I did, and I'm going to full disclosure, it's not perfect, but it's compensation, especially with public sector and especially with public safety individuals, is very complicated. There's a lot of differentials out there. There's different retirement formulas. But what I tried to focus on is just the hourly rate. And if you look here at the 21-22 rate at OFD, those were the rates that those were the rates that we were paying our firefighter personnel back in 21-22. And then what I looked at now is, what does the Chico Fire Department pay? Because I'm looking at if OFD still was in play today, who would we be competing with for labor? So I looked at those figures there, and that's what they are currently paying right now in their agreements, and they have an agreement. I think it goes up 5% next year and 7% the year after that. So as you can see there, if we were still in Orrville Fire Department, we would have had to make probably some significant. I mean, you've seen it everywhere else in different hard to fill positions that you're going to have to likely bump up salaries. So what I tried to do here on this next slide is extrapolate that data and say, okay, if OFD was still in existence, how would the numbers look? So if you can go to the next slide, please.
Let me make a quick question, too, because one of the things that this city has stayed at is the 2% at 50 retirement formula, which is a substantial difference in, I don't want to say savings, but it's a cost differential. 3.0 at 50 is extremely expensive.
Yep.
And that's why this city has never stepped into that.
Yeah, as you say, I did flag that there at OFD there at the very bottom, 2 at 50 versus Chico Fire's 3 at 50. So that's, again, to the mayor's point, the 3 at 50 is a rich formula. It definitely costs a lot more, and that is absolutely one of those variables that it should be noted, because it is an additional cost. It's hard to quantify exactly what that cost is. Okay, so what I did here is the 3 red bars on the right now in years 4, 5, and 6, and again the last section, the last blue and red bars are this current calendar year. But what I did there is I looked back at our last year with Orrville Fire, and again, as I mentioned a minute ago, the total cost in 21-22 was $4.8 million, but realistically, I think about $600,000 to $700,000 of that was paid out for health-related payouts that were owed. So really, the cost of that year was about $4.2 million of normal operational costs. So I took that figure and I said, okay, if we were going to compete with looking at Chico's wages, what would that look like today in an OFD department? So what I did there is I multiplied for that first year, that first red bar is the OFD Orrville Fire compensation rates with a 43% increase. Because again, if you saw on the last slide, we were about 55% behind. So I just want you to see the method of the madness here. So I did a 43% increase, and you can see if we matched Chico's fire, that's where it would be. So you would see the contracted rate would be a little bit more, but they're relatively close. The next year incorporates a 5% COLA, because that's what was negotiated in their deal, and the third year incorporates a 7% COLA. So you can see one thing is consistent, right? Costs go up every year. Whether we're with, it's the cost of doing business right now. But you can see they're pretty close, and again, that last year, the big difference there, again, is jumping to that 66-hour work week, that $400,000 hit definitely bumped up that cost a little bit more, where it's, I think it's $6 million to about $5.65 million. Chief, do you have anything?
Really
Yeah,
quick?
absolutely, please.
Sorry, I just want to point out too that this is personnel costs only. And within the agreement, the cooperative aspect of getting those resources. So Orville would not only need to pay more, but they would also need to expand their services. And I think most of you remember when I presented the growth plan. I mean, that's something that the city still needs to work towards, even within the contract. Excuse me, but just please keep in mind that the one engine and one ladder truck staffed with 5 folks is pretty minimal. So I think there's a purple line that is the services that are needed to be provided to the community. And I'm sorry, I just wanted to point that out because that's something that within the contract that's agreed upon, is that cooperative aspect and getting those resources, being able to fill multiple alarms and such like that. But there is that cost of the services as well. So.
Councilman, Vice Mayor Smith has a question.
Yeah, so being that I was here during all these discussions, Station 63, which serviced the north part of the city of Oroville, and there was a disparity of service. So in other words, CAL FIRE was providing more service than we were reciprocating as OFD. And at some point in that discussion, and this experience happened with Chico, there was then billing coming from CAL FIRE to the city for that disparity of service or differential. So that being said, is that considered in these numbers? If it's not, then hypothetically, again, since we're kind of using some hypotheticals here to project potential cost, then potentially, if that occurred, then these numbers would be maybe even, potentially. I mean, again, hypothetically, because we are receiving more, service from Station 63 in the city limits.
Yeah, so, excuse me, within the agreement, it's a full boundary drop. So the city's able to help more often Butte County, CAL FIRE, and the neighboring resources. So with that boundary drop, we're able to help each other more. But I will, just being totally transparent, the headquarters is in the city. The station's built in the city. They're going to run a lot of city calls, just like if the city was to build the city fire station in the county. So there's always going to be, it's going to lean a little bit heavier there, and that's just because of location and doing what's right for the community and sending the closest resource. But it's really hard for Orville to compete with that station, and that's just that's a good agreement and handshake between county and the city. But yeah, that's always going to teeter no matter what because of the location.
Sure, and I appreciate that, but I'm just, for clarity and a fair comparative analysis, that is kind of like the, undiscussed, issue that just exists there naturally because it exists in the city limits, and we do receive a benefit, which I'm glad to receive, but I think it should be noted anyway in the conversation.
Correct, and it's both. It's a station that houses Butte County and CAL FIRE, so they're both assisting the city of Orville quite a bit.
Yeah, I'm up next in the queue, and let me add to your conversation, Vice Mayor. In the past, what would happen is Station 63 was balanced with where the city stations could help the Station 60, the county's area. So it used to be we went to Long Bar Road a lot more often, and it was easier for us to go there than the balance of 63. So there was kind of a balance struck there, which was something in an old agreement called SCRPMA, South County Rescue Management Agreement, and that doesn't exist anymore, as I recall. Consequently, we have another issue that now the city taxpayers are paying more in sales tax revenue that's going to the county fire. You follow me? Because that measure, what was the measure number?
Measure H.
H just passed.
It did.
So there's more money coming from the county city residents. So I'm just throwing it out there as a perception. So
No, it crossed my mind too, Mr. Mayor.
I mean, it's a measure to cross it, and I'm not playing it. Garrett, thank you.
Yeah.
Welcome to our table.
Hello, everybody. Garrett Schoen, Fire Chief. To touch on that subject with Measure H, and it did pass, and we thank the citizens for voting for that. It does have a direct benefit for the city of Orville, and how that does is it's now putting a third body on that engine
Right.
at Station 63. It's also putting a third body on that engine in Palermo that comes in and assist, and that third body onto the Kelly Ridge Station. So we can now look at our dispatch plans. And instead of needing 4 engines to respond to a residential structure fire where we're getting 8 personnel, we can now send 3 engines and you get 9 personnel in there. It allows an engine to be left behind to capture those next-in emergency calls. So it does have a direct benefit in the cooperative agreement and how we operate here with the city.
Appreciate that. Thank you for that explanation. It's a point well taken. And I just remember the old Scurfman days. We had that scenario happening back with Bill Sager in those days. And I'm not trying to return to that. I'm just saying that there are scenarios here. So please, let's continue. I don't want to interrupt.
No, you bet. No, and frankly, as Chief Tens mentioned, we have had a number of preliminary discussions right now on a West Station, and we're still looking at getting some estimates on what it would cost to potentially renovate a facility out there. Hopefully, we'll be bringing that back in the near future. But I think to your point and the Chief's point, if we open a station up there today, I imagine we'd be serving Thermalito quite a bit. So that's where, again, I think it's part of the cooperative system. There's going to be give and take because there's not as we anticipate growth out on the western side. Right now, there's a dense population that's in the county that would probably get services. So it is it's definitely a give and take.
Well, I like to think of that station, we call it Tracy Station.
Yeah. All right. So real quick, again, as far as the cost analysis summary, as we mentioned, there's so many nuances here. The pension issue, I didn't factor in, and again, there's full transparency. There's a number of things. Again, I mentioned we are taking on fire marshal costs of about $120,000 a year right now. We are taking on weed abatements, about $45,000. We aren't paying for dispatch. That's included in the contract, so that's a cost savings. There's other things like the hydrants, and we've talked about that ourselves, the hydrant maintenance, because CAL FIRE does some of the work, but frankly, we have an MOU with CAL FIRE for the fire hydrant maintenance that is, I think, 12 years old, so we're going to meet and actually discuss that to make sure that the hydrants are appropriately greased, appropriately maintained. So there are some nuances here that I didn't factor in. Sometimes, again, I think it's kind of a give and a take. But one thing is for sure, either model that you look at, every single year costs are going to rise. With an OFD model, the city certainly has that local control, but does need to maintain competitiveness with our local jurisdictions in order to be able to recruit and retain firefighters. With the CAL FIRE model, obviously we're subject to what the state bargains. So again, there are some different nuances here.
Could you add the need for the business inspection program?
Inspection, yeah, and I kind of packaged it in with the fire marshal, okay. and actually we had some discussions on that where I don't want to commit the CAL FIRE, the fire personnel up there, and I guess I say CAL FIRE, I personally think of them as Orville Fire, but we've had some discussions about them doing being able to possibly do some of the business inspections. We're working on, again, I think we need to get a full-time fire marshal. We need to get some administrative support to help schedule some of those. So we have some of those things that are in the works.
And the only reason I raise that is now it's state law as of 2018 that local government are supposed to supply those annual business inspections. We used to do them when we were Orville City, and we haven't done them so much now. So
absolutely.
All right.
Contract CAL FIRE includes the pension costs, as I had mentioned, both ongoing and the unfunded portion. But as I kind of highlighted earlier, we do own what those costs for our prior firefighters going forward, as long as they're drawing the pension, or as long as they're still working and they have hours of service with OFD, we are going to have to fund that.
I would like to call the unfunded portion the PERS is failed investment portfolio, because that's what it's more correctly called. It's their failed investments comes back and bills us. And they won't call it that, but that's really what it is. And the one problem I have with the pensions is that we're still going to be billed and paid for those pensions because we have 18 positions, whether it's CAL FIRE or whether it's Oroville City. It comes back to us through the contract, because they certainly don't want to provide free pensions for personnel providing service under the contract. So, and in many example you'll see in our actuarials for each city that has a contract, there are fire department expenses to the pension program. Gridley still has fire positions they're paying for in the pension program. Oroville City has fire positions that we're paying for. And I might ask Ruth, how long does that occur in terms of the actuarials, their description of the actuarial net cost that we pay?
It would continue as long as they were drawing a pension.
As long as they're all working or alive and drawing a pension,
Yeah.
right? I mean, I hate to
It's
say it that way.
nicer than saying when they die.
Yeah. You know, and I did, Mr. Mayor, I did look at like what the city pension costs were when Ruth's been great in providing all sorts of costs. Like for the last 3 years with the Oroville Fire model, the pension cost, total pension cost, which is current employees, current cost and the unfunded liability was 1.3, 1.3, and then 1 million. And when we went to the contracted model, in 22-23 it was 320,000, 23-24 is 200,000. And again, that's based upon because you're only paying for that unfunded liability. The biggest chunk of the cost is you're paying the ongoing cost. Yeah,
Right.
you have the unfunded costs, which are going to be there as long as we have people that are drawing on it or working towards retirement. And again, I don't think those are going to go away until all those people pass away, unfortunately.
Okay.
Yeah, so with that, the direction we're looking for, obviously, we have about 7.5 months to before the contract terminates. Option we think would be prudent right now is to seek another 3-year agreement. And, you know, the chief and we've talked about some things. I know there's been some concerns or some suggestions, you know, about maybe trying to see if we can have more EMTs per engine. Right now, the contract does guarantee 1 EMT per engine. But I'm not sure if there's any other ideas that the council has. I know some things I know that we've heard from just prior conversations is maybe more localized training. I'm not sure if that can be incorporated somehow. And again, not to say there hasn't been sufficient localized training, but maybe if there's anything else that the council would like to see into the contract, because certainly it's a negotiation process and we can see what variables or what services could be included in that.
I'll put myself in the queue. Anybody got a question before me? Well, my big problem is, and as an Oroville Fire Department, we had an 18-month period that we actually trained everyone on the actual facilities of the community, and we're tested on that, and tested on the streets, and tested on the fire hydrant locations, tested on the fire department connections, tested on the systems. So, and I'm not proposing that CAL FIRE do that. That's not normal in their process, but that's something we lost. And sometimes it's referred to as a ridiculous amount of trivia, but at the same time, I and my fellow retirees could tell you a lot of stories about any address in this town with probably a lot of degree of accuracy. But that's the thing that I see as missing, because we had a tremendous knowledge of the community, tremendous knowledge of the businesses, and especially our big facilities like the sawmills, the cannery, the larger operations. The cannery has an emergency response team, and we used to meet with them on a regular basis. That's their own people working with some of their processes they have, their steam cookers, and whenever they do an entry and those kind of things. So I kind of miss that, because that was a big part of the delivery of service that we had. And I think Chris Tins knows what I'm talking about in terms of the 18-month program. It was very rare. I mean, it's unique. Our 18-month program was higher than most folks, and it was, yes, the training on the basic skills, but it was the training of the community that I don't know if we can get it in this contract renewal, but it's something I see as missing. It's in the local service delivery business. That's a big part of it. It's a whole lot different at 2 o'clock in the morning when you're going through the Reese building, and have you been in there and you know where all the apartments are. And that's a 13 units, and I can tell you all kinds of ridiculous details of where the fire exits are and that kind of stuff. So that's the thing I'm looking for, and maybe it can be worked in the contract, maybe it can't, I don't know. It's an interesting comment because that's what I see missing. And it's because, some staff have never really seen the city, and they're part of the state operating the employment process, so that's fair. But it would be nice to be able to have people that have been here for some time and actually have tremendous knowledge about the community, especially the downtown area and the underground basements, all the big buildings that we have that are very unique. And if you've ever been in the basement of the convention center, it's a scary place. I just had a comment. We were trying to use it for a storage area for the Downtown Business Association. And she came back and says, I know it's big and everything, but I'm too scared to go down there. It's a unique place, and I suggest you all should see that one day. But that's the thing unique to our community, and that's what I'd like to see, addressed. Councilman Thompson's next.
Thank you. Actually, you sparked something in my I got 2 points. First is sparked from what you said. Just throwing out there, I'm not sure if it's possible. I don't think it would have much cost, but if there was some kind of a maybe annual roundtable with just local retirees, just to have a meal together, and a few of them just shoot the breeze and be able to have conversations. I think that would maybe transfer, because it's important to honor those who served, and there's something that you can't necessarily get trained on a large scale training that is just inherent with people who have been here for a few decades, maybe 2. How many decades?
December 3rd, 1974. I'll let you do the math. How's that?
Okay, that's older. That's longer than I've been alive. So, yeah. But just thrown out there, that might be something good, and that would just be honoring for those that have served our community for a long time. I think that'd be fun for those guys, and there might be just some good information that'd be passed to even to guys that are new coming on, especially it was an annual event to have that. But I just want to say I'm really grateful for the work that you guys do. Just recently we went through the Thompson fire, and I'm not a fireman. I've never been a fireman, but I believe timing is of the essence when there's an incident like this one. And so, like Chief Tens mentioned, the streamlining, the timing, and all of that, I don't know where Kelly Ridge would be today if those things weren't in place. The rapid response, the rapid deployment of, equipment that the OFD didn't have previously. I know that there's, obviously, I'm sure CAL FIRE would have came in and helped us, but I don't know if the timing and the streamlining and the quick response would have been as quick. And I just, knowing friends that live, literally one of my friends, her house was on the news because it literally burnt right up to her fence, burnt some of her bushes, and so it came right up to where she was. And I don't know if her house would still be there. It's like what ifs. But anyway, I'm just really grateful for the work that you guys do. You guys serve our community really well. I'm really tickled with the training that our guys have access to on a state level, the experience and the opportunities they have on a state level, especially as Oroville continues to change, that these guys have opportunity to serve and get exposed to different communities. Even as ours changes, there's a potential for experience with communities that already are where Oroville will be. Another seller for me is the future pension costs for future personnel. We know that our budget, that's a huge, our unfunded liabilities are a huge, huge cost for us. And so for our future employees, the fact that that's baked in is just huge for me. So I'm just really happy, and thank you guys for what you do for our community. Again, the Thompson Fire is just a testament to the hard work that you guys do to protect our community, and just want to say thank you. So I will definitely be in favor of seeking another, 3 or 5 years or whatever we want to do.
Councilman Riggs is in the queue.
Thank you. I can't believe you said you were tickled by the training. I'm not tickled, but I have, you guys might know this, 3 more, this is the third to last meeting for me, 2 more after this. And I have developed a small list of term pride points. And the third on that list is CAL FIRE and the contract and the level of service that our team has been able to provide with that additional support.
But you're not tickled?
I'm not tickled, no. I'm anxious just hearing that word, actually. But I just want to share that I recall in the start of it that it was hard and it was contentious, and the firefighters weren't sure about that change, and that was scary. And I just feel like they've done such a good and honoring job adopting the new contract, and that's from my perspective, that it has served our community well. My question is, how is employee morale? How has that change been implemented internally? What are the vibes, I guess?
I can't speak for everybody, but I can tell you that every member that came over in the contract wears the CAL FIRE patch with the same pride that they wore the Oroville Fire patch with. And I think we all, not outsiders, but new insiders to CAL FIRE, it's a struggle for us. It's extremely, it's challenging for me, but I'm up for the challenge. And I know not only the firefighters that came over in the contract have accepted that challenge, but the past or classic CAL FIRE members have really embraced Oroville. And welcomed it, and have brought a wealth of knowledge and carry that same passion for the community. And I see those guys every day, and there's a lot of times there's new faces, but they come in there, and when you come work at this station, it's one of the busiest stations around, and those guys, they just jump right in the seat and tackle it. So I think I can say with confidence that everybody has adapted well and has been optimistic, and a lot of them have moved on to opportunities through choice. I know that was a big one. They've had the opportunity for them to move on, the ones that wanted to have, and they will continue to do that, and they'll have the ability to promote and move on to different communities if they choose. Some of them have stayed around, same as myself, and a few others, and other ones left maybe to, not necessarily because they didn't like Oroville, but it's a little too busy. And, they can go work at a station that's a little bit more slower and get a little more sleep at night after 10 years of getting up and being up all night is challenging. So I respect their decisions.
Well, thank you for that. And I want to specifically recognize you and the growth that I've even seen from your time over the past 4 years, and congratulate you on a great career so far.
I appreciate that. Thank you very much.
Vice
I appreciate
Mayor
the
Smith is
opportunity.
next in the queue.
Yeah, and just echo those sentiments that Councilwoman Riggs had expressed. A lot of appreciation. I know one of the issues was upward mobility. When we were considering this as far as what that offers our firefighters, and then additionally that institutional knowledge. I think that the mayor was pointing, and I think that is very important. Mm-hmm. Institutional knowledge is huge when it comes to passing the baton and ensuring that that information is maintained seamlessly throughout the organization as it naturally changes. Because one thing we can count on is change in life, right? It just happens. That being said, one of the things that moved me personally in consideration of making this change, which of course the OFD value, with the history. And I think you guys have done an amazing job of ensuring that history and embracing that, which has been amazing. But with that institutional knowledge as well, one of the concerns that I think many of us have had with so many other agencies interacting in Oroville, we're the county seat. You have the U.S. Forest Service, CHP. There are so many agencies here. One of the things that was a value to me within our police department was a higher level of cooperation and networking. Again, and sharing that institutional knowledge. Oroville should be the safest city in the North State, hands down, because there's so many agencies that are based here, right? And then additionally with CAL FIRE, it just seemed to be smart to have one organization with all of these different agencies here and the interface with the wildland, you know, and the urban area. And there's just, as fire has, you know, changed forever in our state, it just seemed to me to make sense to put that under one organization that could, again, with that relationship and building relationships with the other agencies that, you know, when you have a fire, it's just not the fire department, it's the sheriff's department, it's road crews. I mean, there's so many moving pieces that are, of course, deployed in an incident like that. And so when it comes to public safety, quick response, it just seemed to me to make sense, you know, with, again, the cooperative institutional knowledge that you all bring to bear. And then additionally, you know, when as OFD in a smaller town, trying to populate and maintain appropriate staffing levels, one of the things that struck me was sometimes we got challenged with that. When you have 18 people and a few are sick or, you know, injuries, all of us, now you're down 13 or 15, which happened. With a larger organization, then of course you're able to backfill. It just seemed to me with a small city trying to provide a high level of protection to our town that I think we all deserve, that it made sense from, you know, the various points that I've just made. And I think that that change has been felt. And certainly I've never heard of any concerns with staffing levels or, you know, only 2 people on an app. Right now we have 3. It just, for all those reasons, for me, even if it costs us a little bit more, and it might, it looks like that might be on the table, but to provide the higher level of service to our community. And we think about all the fear. I mean, look what happened when we were dealing with the Thompson fire, the fear. And the response from the community, you know, everyone, you know, shut it down when it came to fireworks because it's fearful, all of us, myself included. And to know that we have you know, we've done all we can to marshal all of these resources to have an effective firefighting force. And whatever that takes, whatever that costs, I think that our community deserves that. And so for those reasons and others, you know, I'm certainly in support of an additional 3 years.
I'm next in the queue. Quick question I have, and one of the things I've been looking at other fire departments around the area just lately because of this review, and one of the things I'm noticing that there's a significant amount of student interns or student firefighter positions that many of the departments are utilizing. I don't know if the CAL FIRE's ever used that, but it seems to me with Butte College Fire Academy here, the possibility of utilizing students from that college to serve in the department might be an interesting idea. I don't know if that idea has ever flown before, but I'd be curious to see if that's an idea or possibility or how it might work. I know when we considered this thing, we looked at Red Bluff and they had what was it called, a reserve program. And something like that might be a nice supplement to it, especially when as you mentioned, we have a very high activity station. It might be that students might be attracted to that station as serving, you know, student type of things. And many of the departments actually pay them a certain minimum amount, benefit free, just an hourly amount. So I'll look, maybe that is something as a possibility for a discussion. The other question I had, and I know Councilman Riggs, I appreciate her comment, but of the original 18 that we had that were over a fire, how many we have left here?
That came over to CAL FIRE?
Or, yes.
I'm gonna have to think about that.
I have to think about. I know I was testing you here real quick.
Yeah. So myself, Battalion Chief Reese, Captain Robinson, Captain Kahn, Engineer Woodard, Captain Copeland.
Thanks.
I sure hope I'm not forgetting anyone. Am I forgetting anyone? There we go.
There you go.
Way more prepared than I am.
Yeah.
I'm sorry. Yeah, Scott Margolin.
Uh-huh.
I believe that's it.
So it's about 7?
Yep.
7. So that's my point, because the 18 we had, we spent a lot of time, we invested in those, and they're not here anymore. Now, there's every reason in the world for them to leave, and certainly if they go to other departments, that's their choice. We've always had a turnover in Oroville, whether it was Oroville City Fire or CAL FIRE. But at the same time, to me, it's a loss of a lot of training that we had in place, the 18, and we kind of predicted it. When we had the discussion, I remember predicting it. Just because it's a different organization, and that's not what they signed up for. They signed up to work for Oroville City Fire. So we changed the game on them. They didn't have a choice, and I'll just make a comment that way. But I would like to see, something about what kind of a student intern or student career process is it, because I saw it in 5 or 6 different departments that are utilizing it. Grass Valley is a good example. Humboldt Fire Protection up by Eureka and Ukiah are all using student interns. So it might be an interesting idea to help with the staffing and help augment what's going on.
So with that, the answer is kind of a roundabout answer, but I think the only option that I could think of off the top of my head would be a volunteer program that the city obviously could partake in,
Right.
But that would add an additional cost, and those employees would be they're volunteers, but they would be city employees. So if they were injured, they would go through the same process as before. The cost of turnouts and such. There's a cost with it. I know we've looked at it before, and there's a lot of new moving parts. I'm still trying to get my feet underneath me, but if that's the will of the council, we could absolutely look at implementing a volunteer program.
Well, one of the things I saw was they actually utilized the fire cadets from a local fire academy, and they were equipped with their safety gear. So it was kind of a complement to the Firefighter One program, where they have to have some experience, either volunteer or paid experience, to satisfy their Firefighter One certificate. So there was an incentive there. So I'd be interested in hear what kind of discussions that could occur. Councilman Johnstone's next.
Thank you. So I was not here on the dais when the discussions were happening and the changeover happened. And although I respect very much Oroville Fire Department, everything that I have learned, you and I have had recent conversations about growth and just what Cal Fire does currently and is potentially wanting to bring to the city in the future. And I'm just very excited about what Cal Fire offers. I work at Cal Floor, so forgive me. That's why I keep doing it. I'm excited about growth potential for the city, as well as just the amazing ability that you guys have provided with the Thompson Fire. I feel very safe in our city because of Cal Fire and the closeness, just your willingness to be readily available, the new engines that we have, the facility that I toured, and the possibilities that are happening. So I am 100% for Cal Fire extension of the contract. Thank you.
Oh, Councilman Weber's up.
Thank you very much. I'll be brief. I would like to propose that we make a motion to direct staff to work on a 3-year agreement, but I don't know what all the amendments that you guys would want to be in that 3-year agreement. So what would, because please forgive me, but I just heard a bunch of stuff, but I can't remember all of it.
I think direction.
And we do have a public comment just before we get
Right.
to the point.
Okay.
But what I no.
I really like the idea. No problem, thank you.
Yeah.
I like the idea that you proposed about staff, especially the ones that come and work in the Oroville locations, having specialized training regarding the city and the buildings. And so I would like to see specialized training.
Got that written down.
Okay, thank you.
Localized, large businesses, basements, it's just the nuances, the
Yes.
uniqueness of the community. I heard that, and again, some of this, I think some of this could be in the contract and some of it could just be agreed upon just through our relationships. But I think, I like the idea that you talked about the annual luncheon with retirees is to share
great.
information and share, because, I mean, frankly, share good stories. This builds camaraderie.
For the record on that really quick.
Yeah.
Any retirees are always welcome. And they still do stop by every once in a while, and some of them, don't like to hang around too long because there's a lot of new faces, but all retirees are always welcome, and there's a cup of coffee and a good story to go with it.
Okay.
Then I also have the student intern thing that we can certainly look into, the
Right.
volunteer program. So I got those three things.
And, however that volunteer program looks
Yeah.
or whatever, I mean, I think that's a reasonable idea. I have some other questions that I'd like to just ask from a personal point of view, and I'll just send a sheet with some questions to ask. So, and I have a sheet that I'd like to span it out so we see basically the detail of your numbers. And if you and Chris can get together and fill in the numbers, then I think it'll help us all understand the cost, because the cost of fire service delivery is very complex, and we all needed it. I tried to put it in a little table, and I'll email it to you and Garrett to look at it, because I think
we were noodling through that when we put this together,
Okay.
actually. So
and that's the thing that I think we need to understand, because before we had the schedule before, the fire marshal services were part of one of our chief officer's duties. So now we're going to have that as an additional cost. And then I never did like the idea we dumped weed abatement off on code enforcement. And Belser, you have my sympathy. That shouldn't have been put in your bucket, but because the fire service is good to know weed abatement and understand the properties. And part of it I like, because the personnel went out and did the weed inspections and made sure that, because they twofold made sure they got done. And secondly, they had new access to all those properties that could become a problem. And it was dumped on your department, and I didn't agree to that, but that's what happened. And I think the long-term costs, and I know we probably need more staff in the department in terms of administrative to help with the inspection program. So what costs, I know we have a small amount there, but I don't think that's enough in terms of organizing inspections and those kind of things that should be properly done, because staff can't make those kind of calls. It's just too hard to do it. I think those are all issues. And like I said, I'll send you my questions. And what I'm trying to do is put it in a table so we can all see what this year, next year is going to be, and whatever the full-time cost could be. Okay? Got any more questions? I think we basically move by consensus.
We have public comment. Would you like to hear?
Excuse me. Yes, please do.
Okay,
Comment
perfect.
cards.
Yes, we have one from Mike Brown.
Oh, Mike, welcome.
Good evening. Am I on? Good evening,
you're
Mayor
on.
Pittman, members of the council. When you were learning to drive a fire engine out of this station, I was chasing you on my bicycle. So,
hey, wait a minute.
You got me started. Orville's changed a lot, and at the same time, California's changed a lot, Northern California's changed a lot, and all around us, different counties surrounding us, there's fire departments failing. There's no more Chester Fire Department. There's no more Eastern Plumas Rural Fire Department. Fire departments are consolidating. We're kind of in the catbird seat and just north of the Sacramento metropolitan area. And if you go all the way to Sacramento, you'll find a busier fire station than Orville. But if you go north to Oregon, you won't find a busier fire station than your station, as far as I know.
True.
That's good news, bad news. It's real busy, and that's because people have needs. But the good news is you're doing well with your money. You should run the tires off those fire engines, keep those firefighters wore out, expect the old guys to promote out or transfer out. Did the guys that leave stay with CAL FIRE mostly?
Before the transition.
After the transition, the ones that were here?
There was two that left.
Two that left.
After the transition.
Okay. When people transfer out of this station, just like they did out of the town of Paradise and the city of Biggs and the city of Gridley, they tend to stay in this unit. Each CAL FIRE unit is vastly different. There's no other CAL FIRE unit like the Butte unit. Oh, by the way, it's just Butte County. It's not Nevada, Yuba, Placer, Solano, Lake, Napa, Solana, Colusa, Moran. It's Butte County. You guys are in the catbird seat. You're here in the city of Orville with the county fire, CAL FIRE cooperative agreement that people take for granted. It's 90 years old this year. Gridley's been in agreement, I don't know, 30 years. Biggs maybe 20 now. Paradise, I don't know, 15 or 20. I worked here my whole career. I left the town of Paradise because I could see a slow rolling train wreck after Prop 13. The worst thing you can do is not maximize the resources you have. And don't make mistakes like putting fire stations in the wrong place. Look to your neighbors in the county of Butte, the city of Gridley, the city of Biggs, which, believe it or not, you share a common boundary with the city of Biggs out there at the wildlife area.
It's actually in the city, yeah. The school district is
Yeah.
in Orville City, this big school district, believe it or not, yeah.
Yeah, growth comes, but I think you're on the right track. We went from having an 18-person fire department that couldn't stay staffed all the time to being the largest fire department between Sacramento and Portland, Oregon. Continue the work. Thank you.
Thanks, Mike.
That's all I had for submitted public.
Oh, Mr. Spear would like.
My apologies.
Actually, can I have a follow-up question? So we're busier than Reading?
In Sacramento.
That's true.
That's not a bad thing. I mean, it's proof there's need, but the last thing you want to do is put a station in the wrong place and then spend $1 million a year or whatever it is now to staff a few $1 million a year to staff it in the wrong place. Look to your neighbors that have issues with weed abatement, have issues with fire marshal service, have issues with code enforcement, fire protection planning. Because like it or not, growth is coming. I was fine when Orville was 4,000 people. I'm not leaving.
So,
but I got a house out of town, so I'm good.
Even just blows my mind, even that our fire station is busier than Chico. I mean, you think of the cities north of here, and there's,
Well,
you know,
Chico has 6 stations, so.
Oh, see, per station.
Per station,
Yeah, per
right.
station.
I see, per station.
Yeah.
Got it. I'm like,
So Butte County runs more calls
I'm
than
like,
the
what
city
in the
of
world is
Orville.
going on in Orville?
But when you look at the station,
Per
it's
station.
per station.
Right.
The busiest station is proof you're putting your money in the right place.
Gotcha, yeah.
And you're doing it now, not with 18 people, but with several hundred.
Right.
London 18.
Gotcha, yeah, I appreciate that, yeah. That makes sense.
Mr. Spear, welcome.
Mayor, Vice Mayor, City Council. Yes, I agree with your observation about losing the, when we first got our building down on Huntoon Street, the fire department came, there was probably about 10 of them, and they went through the whole building. You know, we have 3 stories, a lot of doors going everywhere. And I was real impressed by them, and I have missed that. It hasn't happened since, but, you know, I think that if we could negotiate that in, it's a real benefit, you know, because we have our church in there and a lot of different classrooms and just everybody being familiar with the buildings. We had a lot of old buildings downtown, like they were talking about, a lot of basements and so that's a good observation. Thank you.
Got enough to work on there?
I believe so.
Okay.
Well, we will work and we'll bring a
Bring it
3-year
back.
contract back
Yeah.
and we'll work on those figures.
All right.
Can I
Yes,
actually
sir.
ask one thing? When you, I don't know if a 5 is even an option, but if it is an option, I'd like to see a price comparison between, you know, doing a 3 or a 5. You know, if there's a cost savings, obviously you're locked in longer, but if there's a savings.
How about the duration of the contract?
Yeah, so just
Okay.
just an
Okay.
option to
Absolutely.
see,
Okay.
you know, if that's even an option.
One of the things too that I did mention in here was the state law that changed the applicants to the fire department process. And it was concerning to me, and I will admit that I thought it was only applied to CAL FIRE. But can you tell us some more information about the state law that allows an applicant that had a criminal record before and now becomes an applicant here?
Yeah.
How does that work now?
Yeah, so it's AB 2147 and it's Senate Bill 2147 and it was passed in I think 2020. And it basically expedited the expungement process for certain folks who had felony convictions that performed in some capacity in fire protection services while they were incarcerated. For example, if they worked on a line or if they worked in the conservation crews and they had a felony that was nonviolent and non-sex related, again, there's a list of ones that excludes them, they can make a petition, and then when they are released, they're basically, when Dave and I were talking about this earlier today, it's kind of like a resentencing, because most people, they go through their sentence, they serve their time, and then after their time, they are paroled, or there's post-incarceration activities that they need to they need to perform before they're completely released. And what this would do is, again, if you certain felony convictions, certain experience, you make a petition, and then your record can be expunged immediately instead of having to do those post-incarceration activities. So there's always been an expungement process, but it would take a year or two after they're incarcerated before you can start that process. This process allows those with certain felony convictions to start that earlier, immediately. And what that does essentially is they don't have to disclose the felony conviction. It allows them to become an EMT. But again, it does apply. It's a statewide law. It's not, from what I can tell, it's not specific to CAL FIRE per se. It would be for anyone who wants in any firefighting jurisdiction. So there has been some chatter about that, but I think it would be an issue. I think it's an issue that all firefighting operations are dealing with.
Thank you. Councilman Johnstone is up in the queue.
Thank you. I did have a conversation with Chief Tins about this subject. That is a concern, with felons having access to community, buildings and those kinds of things, and just security-wide. But here's the thing with that is that they go through the same background process. They go through the same hiring, rigorous things that all CAL FIRE, and, quote me if I'm wrong on that all CAL FIRE employees go through, correct? So there's very few that come through here, but the ones that do come through here have the same opportunity to promote as anybody else. And there's not, the concern that you brought is not something that any other agency would.
They're all the same challenges everywhere.
Thank you.
Absolutely.
Yeah. So Chief Tins kind of quelled my concerns about that when we had the conversation, because it's, they're going through the same processes that any other employee would go through. And again, it's non-violent crimes. It's non.
Yeah, there's a list of them.
Exactly.
Non-sex related, non-violence, and it's a challenge. I think the state, when they did this, and there's certainly pros and cons to it, but I think they're looking at a crystal ball where they're going from 72-hour work weeks down to eventually 46, and they see, wow, for us, it's three employees for 3 personnel for the city of Oroville. So they're thinking about it statewide. That's what 2,000-3,000 additional firefighters probably needed. So I'm sure that probably played into it, trying to tap into the experiences that some of those folks gain while they are incarcerated, either working on a core group or a line group that gives them that experience where hopefully if they in the perfect world they go to serve their time and they come out hopefully contributing members to society and are productive, and I think that's part of some of the goals. But there's definitely pros and cons to it.
Right.
I think we've talked about it. But it's not a specific issue to CAL FIRE or Oroville. It's to all fire jurisdictions.
Thank you.
Yeah, my comments were I added some dialogue to this as a discussion because I had seen that, and normally my perception from the fire service is these folks worked on a hand crew and they had experience, and then they would go to work at a hand crew. I was just a little troubled by that particular possibility they'd be working in a municipal operation, having much more access, especially medical aid venue, and then access to our buildings and so on and so forth. But unless you guys have something else to add to it, if you're drawing that through a such different process, and I will take I was mistaken. I thought it was only for CAL FIRE, but no, he's researched. It's a state law that actually applies throughout all the agencies of the state. So it just drove me some concerns because we have to deliver employees to our public and they trust us that we're hiring the best and possible we can. And that's the concern that I have from the elected position up here. And I just want to add, thank you for checking up on that. So I just wanted to the public, there is a comment that I added to that, and he answered the question that I think actually Councilman Vice Mayor Smith asked the question to me, does this apply to one agency or all? And thank you for looking that up. Appreciate it. Okay. Any other comment cards?
No, sir.
No, sir. We don't need a public hearing. Public communication, a hearing of non-agenda items. We have any more cards?
I have not received any.
No more cards. All right, we move on. Future agenda items. Council, any future agenda items? I have one. And it's not an immediate need, but the idea of having a camera on the tower that we own on the levee to, number one, look at activities of downtown Orville, say special events. But I'll be candid, it'd be nice to have a camera that looked at the new Orville Lights project from the tower. How cool. Public view, internet camera. That's the idea that's floating out there, and I'm not trying to set anything cost, but I think it would be a good idea for just the marketing of downtown Orville and the river and those assets. So what? Put it on your list to work on, and talk to IT and see. We still own the tower, correct?
Oh yeah,
and we're getting paid a fee for it. So maybe that fee can help provide an internet camera that we can all use, and we'll call it Chrissy's camera as she's departing. How's that go?
She's not taking. Noodle on it.
All right. Any other council items for the agenda? Yes, Councilman Norbert, please.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. And that's funny that you brought up the lights project, and that's an excellent idea, by the way. I like it. But I would also like to circle back and talk, because a while ago I talked about donating to the Rotary Club, because I think it would be a very wise investment of this body to invest in that, because that is going to be an attraction, period. And I would love to get bragging rights on our website and all that, and then have bragging rights on their website too. So I would like to explore future agenda item of giving them $5,000. So, also this one, I mentioned it last year. I want to mention it this year for next Christmas season. But I would love to explore renting our own ice rink for downtown. So I don't know what that looks like, but I think it would add so much flavor to what everybody's trying to do downtown for the holiday season. And then third, I would like to re-announce the Christmas toy drive that we're doing Saturday, November 30th at Walmart from 10 to 5 p.m. And that's in conjunction with the Orville Rescue Mission. That's going to benefit the Orville Rescue Mission Christmas dinner that they've been doing annually for, I think, like 40 years. So it'll be Saturday from 10 to 5. Bring anything down that you feel like giving. And then lastly, I want to say, because we're not going to see each other until after Thanksgiving, so I'm very thankful for all you. And I'm thankful for staff, and I'm thankful for being in this position with you guys. And I love that we all do work very well together. I'm sad to see that this is your third to last meeting. I wish you would have reconsidered and ran, because I think you're an excellent council member. And but anyway, I'm very thankful for everybody, staff, everybody here. You guys are awesome. And so I want to wish you all a happy Thanksgiving.
Thank you. I think we should also add congratulations to Ms. Riggs on her new position.
Thanks. Yeah.
Yeah. All right.
Oh, one other congratulations. I want to congratulate Ruth. She's celebrating 10 years of service at the city. And earlier,
Okay.
pass this card down to her from us. And earlier, I made the mistake of looking at my Excel sheet and saying you're celebrating 20 years. And this is why you do accounting and numbers and not me. I looked at it again, and it's 10 years. And I apologize, that says 20 years. But what you've done in 10 is probably equal to what most people could do in 20. Yeah, let them know.
All right. Any correspondence? Seeing none, I'm entertaining the idea of adjourning this meeting. The meeting will be adjourned to the next regular meeting of Orville City Council be held on December 3rd, 2024 at 4 p.m. Thank you all, and happy Thanksgiving.